which falls within the National Prosecuting Authority. Her testimony follows IDEC head Andrea Johnson's evidence before the committee last week. Babalondenza reports.
National Prosecuting Authority head Shamila Batoi's appearance follows weeks of submissions that implicated prosecutors. KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, during his testimony, made allegations of infiltration in the criminal justice system that include prosecutors, politicians and members of the judiciary. Batoi can also expect questions that IDEC was part of a project to arrest crime intelligence head Tumsani Khumalo to scupper investigations involving the so-called Big Five crime syndicate. Committee Chairperson Servet Lechanyane said during yesterday's planning meeting that Batoi's testimony will only be for 1 day. Minister Senzo Mchunu Chief of Staff Cedric Nkabinde will take the stand on Thursday. Babalondenza, Eyewitness News.
Meanwhile, retired Ekurhuleni Metro Police Deputy Commissioner Rivo Spies is expected to continue with his testimony at the Madlanga Commission a day after explosive evidence. Spies has called for JMPD officers to be subjected to lifestyle audits. He claims the officers have been identified in many criminal matters with little to no repercussions. Oren Singh reports.
Retired JMPD Deputy Commissioner Rivo Spies says some JMPD officers are living beyond their means, raising questions about how they fund their lavish lifestyles. Testifying before the Madlanga Commission yesterday, Spies, who is currently employed with the Tshwane Metro Police, called for lifestyle audits of Metro cops.
You start looking at how officers live. They drive luxury vehicles. They live luxury estates.
He says current law allows for lifestyle audits to be conducted on municipal officials and not Metro Police.
That's something that need to be, according to me, made compulsory, is that you cannot be a law enforcement officer and not be vetted to do your work.
Spies will continue with his testimony this morning. Arun Singh, Eyewitness News.
And the NPA says it's still deciding whether it will oppose the bail application of a prominent Zimbabwean politician who was arrested in South Africa for allegedly being in possession of explosives. Former Zimbabwean MP Job Sikhala appeared in the Pretoria Magistrates Court yesterday following his arrest. Sikhala says officers found explosives in his car in Pretoria last week. While he's set to return to court for bail application tomorrow, NPA spokesperson Lumka Mahanjana says investigations are ongoing.
We have not decided whether we are going to oppose or not oppose their release on bail, because we still need to do bail investigations and get their profiles to decide whether we should oppose bail or not oppose bail in this instance.
Gold is trading at $4,143.85 an ounce. The rand is at 17.15 to the dollar, 22.59 to the pound, 19.82 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $63.94 a barrel.
Roadworks causing about a 30-minute delay. Kempton Park R24 westbound between Atlas Road and Barbara Road. Sunwood Park, Boksburg. Also, roadworks causing about a 20-minute delay. This is on the N17 westbound between Carnival City and Rondebold, leaving Soweto. Traffic heavily backed up. N1 northbound from the Deep Kloof interchange all the way to the N17.
A partly cloudy day in store for Gauteng with afternoon scattered thunder showers. The temperatures will peak at highs between 22 and 24 degrees. The top story in EW in this hour: two siblings linked to the murder of rapper Kenan aka Forbes and celebrity chef Dibelo Motswane are expected to arrive at King Shaka International Airport in Durban from Eswatini this morning.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
Let's Walk the Talk, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app,
DSTV channel 856,
92.7 and 106 FM.
8 minutes after 9 o'clock. Dumelang, Sanbonani, Bonjour. Welcome to the Clement Manyathela Show on this Tuesday, the 11th day of November. I hope you're well this morning. Always appreciate you joining us on 702. The 702 open line starts right now, this hour on 011-883-0702. The number to dial, that's the one. The number to send your WhatsApp voice notes to is 072-702-1702. Here's a question. Do you think what Solidarity has done is the correct thing? And do you think that it is patriotic? If you haven't seen the story, this lobby group has placed an ad on Johannesburg's M1 labeling South Africa as the most race-regulated country in the world. So the advertisement has now been removed by the Johannesburg Metro Police Department, we are told, and Solidarity has now threatened legal action following that removal. And their argument is that they paid for this banner to be on this wall on the road leading to the G20. And they believe that this is a way of protesting against race-based laws. And I wonder what you think of how they've chosen as a manner of protest, especially during this important time where we're hosting these G20 leaders. I mean, they're going to be powerful, important leaders arriving in Johannesburg in a couple of days. And that is the road that's leading to the G20 venue. And what Solidarity is upset about is that they've paid for the advertising space. They've followed all the necessary procedures to run their awareness campaign. And now the JMPD have decided to remove this banner. And I still don't understand why the JMPD have decided to remove that banner. And listen, I obviously, and I've said this before, I've spoken to Solidarity about this. They believe that this country is race regulated. They clearly have no sense of the need to correct the injustices of the past. They don't understand, or they choose not to see how this country has been impacted, particularly the black majority in this country, by what has happened during apartheid, and they want the status quo to continue. So black people, just be participants of the economy, don't be owners of the economy. Oh, companies that still are not hiring women, even white women, black people, that's fine. Let's keep it that way, because that's how it's always been designed to be. You don't think there's a need for us to be intentional about transformation? So that's always been their sense. And at some point, you've just got to agree to disagree, because you're never going to get them to see the reasons why we've got the laws that we have in this country. That, by the way, if you look at our constitution, that gives you a sense of the green light that those laws even get from the very essence of our constitutional values. So I am not agreeing with Solidarity about this, but I do have questions about why the JMPD would choose to remove this ad. And on what basis are they removing it? And if you understand that, I would like you to help me here. Give me a call on 011-883-0702. There's a banner. It's a long banner. And it says, the most race-regulated country in the world. It's a long banner. And this is placed on the road that's leading to the G20 venue. So the people that will be coming here to attend the G20 summit will probably take sight of this banner. You can disagree all you want with what Solidarity says in that banner. The additional question I'm asking is, why has the Johannesburg Metro Police removed it? I've asked the producers to get a hold of the JMPD, and they did. We're still waiting to see if they can speak to us. But part of what they've told the producers is that they don't know why their own officers removed the banner. And I'm hoping the spokesperson can come and confirm that with us, because he says he doesn't know. They all admit that Solidarity has gone through all the processes of paying for this advertisement, but the spokesperson of the JMPD doesn't know why JMPD officers actually removed it. He's still trying to figure that out. That is also problematic. Because what are the internal processes that were followed to review this ad? I mean, if, for instance, they thought this ad violated certain regulations or it violated people's human rights, whatever argument you would want to place, wasn't this supposed to be picked up during the time when Solidarity was applying to have this banner on that wall and they were paying money for that? So they've woken up too late and now they just want to remove it because, it's embarrassing. There must still be a process that is followed. That's my view. What's yours? Give us a call or send us a WhatsApp voice note. And what do you think of Solidarity's actions? Do you think they're being unpatriotic? I think there's no question about that. But they've got every right to do this. I mean, it's clear these are the collaborators who betrayed this country for Donald Trump. Their intentions have always been clear. But isn't this a time for us to rally together like we did during the World Cup? Because there are some people who believe the issues that we have as a country, we sort of have to park them because there's an important event, global event taking place in this country. Yes, there's no unity. Yes, we've got issues here and there. But is this the moment to mask it, or is this the moment to also protest about it? Or should we have some common good? And are they doing it the right way? I'd like to know your thoughts. And how different is this from, because there's a Women's for Change march. I think there's a group of people that are going to be protesting to highlight the issue of gender-based violence. They also have chosen to march or protest, I think on the day or the day before the G20 summit. That's because they wanted to use that opportunity to put a spotlight on what they think is really the biggest crisis facing this country, gender-based violence. So what is that intended to achieve? Well, it's advocacy. Sometimes you protest, you do advocacy work. It's not necessarily because you think there's going to be a return on that investment, on that action, but you want to put a spotlight on that issue. Let me know your thoughts. 011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702. Between 10 and 11 o'clock, we're going to be in conversation with NESA. That's the National Energy Regulator of South Africa. You may have seen that they've recently come under scrutiny following that landmark Pretoria High Court ruling that found its approval of municipal electricity tariffs is unconstitutional. So what the court has done is determined that NESA failed to conduct proper cost studies and public consultations before setting tariffs. And the ruling demands now greater openness and transparency in how electricity pricing is determined. And this is just coming weeks after the regulator approved a miscalculated Eskom revenue application. Do you remember that? Which is a blunder that really threatens to increase electricity costs for already struggling households. I know NESA has since launched a market inquiry into the impact of fixed charges on electricity customers. But I think there's a lot to talk to NESA about and to understand their mandate. That's the conversation that's coming up between 10 and 11 o'clock. At 11 o'clock, we're going to do our World of Work feature. Today, we're discussing remote jobs that have been on the rise this year. I mean, the world keeps on evolving, and so do South Africans and expectations about where and how they want to work. I think during the pandemic, we saw a boom in remote jobs. There were many companies that pulled staff back into offices in what became known as the Great Return. But when you look at new data that's emerging, even PNet's Job Market Trends report for October 2025 shows that remote opportunities are once again on the rise. So what are those industries and what does that mean about the future of work? That's a conversation we're going to have on our World of Work feature at 11 o'clock. And then we wrap up the show at 11:30 with our Health and Wellness feature. Today we're discussing the role and effectiveness of herbal and traditional medicine in healthcare. I think for generations as South Africans, we've turned to herbal and traditional medicine for healing, for all sorts of ailments. And that seems to still be a trend that continues today. I mean, even new modern clinics and pharmacies all around us, traditional remedies remain a trusted part of many households. Some people say they work better, others use them alongside modern treatments. And for many people, they're a reflection of our culture, our heritage, our faith as well. So we're going to talk about the role and effectiveness of herbal and traditional medicine in healthcare on our health and wellness feature at 11:30. That's the show coming up over the next 3 hours.
Clement Manyathela, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856
92.7
and 106 FM.
David, you're calling us from Centurion. Good morning.
Yes, I think for me, the way I view it, AfriForum and Solidarity, they're just agitators. And I think doing it at this time where there's a G20, it just reveals what the intentions are. And I think it's about time that we stop being apologetic about transformation. I think we've done that too much. And it has allowed fringe groups like Solidarity and AfriForum to capitalize and hold us ransom. So I do believe that even the statement of saying that South Africa is the most race regulated, it's false news. And as a result, the Metro Police had a right to remove those signs there. And I don't feel like, there's any leg that they've got to stand on. I think, I'm just literally holding myself because I'm pissed off. I'm really, really angry that, all our goodwill that we've shown these people, all our forgiveness that we've shown these people has literally been thrown in our face. They're literally spitting on our faces for the kindness that we've showed them post-apartheid, considering what the hardships and the atrocities that they committed against us.
So you're referring to Solidarity, when you say they?
I'm referring to these fringe groups that are really trying to capitalize on this. Because, if you look at, for example, what Donald Trump did when he went into power, he wasn't apologetic about the changes that he wanted for his country. And he did it regardless.
As illegal as they may be. And as unfair as we may find them to be, and for some reason he wants to dictate to us how to run our country. David, I think I agree in the most part with what you're saying around Solidarity and even the messaging. My additional question, though, is on what basis is the Johannesburg Metro Police removing that banner? Because it can't be because, it's irritating, Solidarity is being ridiculous. They must still be able to say to us, okay, this violates the Advertising Act, whatever it is that they think this banner violates. At this stage, we don't know. Even the spokesperson is telling us that, I don't know why this thing was removed. So we need to understand that. And for me, once I've got them on air, I'm able to ask them, when did they pick up that this banner violates certain acts? When? Because when someone says, if Clement says, hey, I want to advertise, approaches an agency of the city of Johannesburg and says, I want to advertise something on this wall. As an agency, you've got to ask, okay, what do you advertise? If I'm saying there's going to be a message on a long banner that says, kill all the black people, for instance, and then you say, okay, cool, you pay, and then you go put up a banner that says, kill the black people. And then JMPD sees that, and they want to come and say, let's remove that because it's weird. I still want to ask, what agency approved this banner? And that's not the response that we're getting. I don't think that just because things are done wrong, we've got any latitude and carte blanche to do as we please. There are still processes that must be followed. Because otherwise, David, next time, the DA is going to be the one that puts up a banner there, and the JMPD is just going to rip it off because they work for a city that's run by the ANC. We don't want to get to that point.
Yeah, I think for me, just my last 2 cents. I don't feel like that statement that they're putting there is factual, for one. And based on that, the JMPD has got a right to remove that because, if they can give us the facts of proving, because all these things will ultimately be proven to court, I'm assuming. But if they can give us factual evidence that South Africa and all this entire world is the most race-regulated country in the world, then it's fine. Then we can have a separate discussion. But they always throw these statements, in the public, and obviously, if you throw something, it sticks. And in future, even if it's disproved, the damage is already done.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're calculating on the fact that even if we ultimately prove them wrong, because that's the tactic that the AfriForum has used before, they say very inflammatory statements, and then later when they questioned against those statements that they've said, they said, no, we did not. They start backtracking. But what they know is that the damage is already done. This is already out there in the public, and there's nothing that we can do about it.
Yeah. David in Centurion, thank you so much for your thoughts. Does anybody know which agency deals with the advertising space in the city of Johannesburg? Does anybody know? Please help me with that, because I'm trying to figure out what the process was followed here. If we're saying that this statement is not factual, isn't that something that the agency that approves the advertising space in these campaigns was supposed to pick up already? And what is the involvement of the Johannesburg Metro Police in that? Do they work together with the agency? Is it the agency that told them, go remove that banner? Were there complaints? We need to understand that process. Once again, I don't agree, not even for a second, with what is posted on that banner. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's actually quite offensive. I think it's not factual. But I'm also wondering, what happens next time when there's a political party or there's actually an honest group that puts up an awareness campaign there, and because the party in charge in the city doesn't like it, then they tell JMPD, go rip it off. We don't want to get there. I still think no matter how much you hate solidarity, no matter how much you may disagree with the message on that banner, we must still understand what process was followed for that banner to be removed. Pat, you're in Johannesburg. Good morning.
Morning, Clement.
Hey, Tada.
Or should I say Locha?
Lochani, Pat. Lochani.
Agwande. I just want to comment on the Solidarity billboard.
Yes.
Because I'm in the advertising, media space.
Mm-hmm.
So usually what happens is that each site where there's a billboard, there will be a media owner. So there's a high chance that JMPD had no sight of this billboard before it was even installed, because the media owner has right which ad gets put up there. So my thinking is that it could be that also, I'm not sure if you are aware, about 80% of the billboards in Johannesburg are illegal. So they're in sites where they're not supposed to be, but that's a topic for another day. It could be that they removed it because it's on an area that's not approved by the city. That could be an argument. Or two, it could be because it's false advertising, and obviously there's some sort of legal grounds just around false advertising or sharing fake news.
Where are the regulators, Pat? Shouldn't there be a regulatory body that
there should be
works in this environment?
Ideally, but as you know, in South Africa, I mean, we've had stories of media owners, bribing city officials to get their their billboards installed in illegal areas. So there's also that notion around just out-of-home advertising in general, in particularly in Johannesburg. So yeah, it's a very tricky one. But in my view, it could be that billboard, there's a high chance that it was installed on an illegal site. Number two, it could be that the CT or JMPD had no sight of this thing, and there's no chance that they could have even interacted with Solidarity at any point, even though it could have been on a legal thing, because there's an agency that does that. There's a media owner that's also involved. So the question should be who the media owner is of that particular site, who then accepted that money from Solidarity.
Yeah, Pat in Joburg, thank you so much for that. James, you are also in Johannesburg. Good morning. What are your thoughts?
Morning, Clement. How are you?
Sure, man. Go ahead.
Clement, look, a person has no right to call fire in the theater. with the purpose of causing stampede. The question really is not whether or not AfriForum has the right to protest or they have the right to, they've paid, so therefore they must be compensated. The question really is the message that they're sending, is it accurate? The message is not accurate and the content is wrong. And what are they doing? They're sending the wrong message to the world about falsehoods. So the MPD and authorities, they have the right to protect people, against that propaganda. Because if I see that, I'll be offended, because I'll be asking myself, are we having government? Are we allowing such things to happen? To understand. So for me, I think that, we need to push back against AfriForum. They're provoking us, they're a privileged group of white people. They've got money, they're rich. Black people have got nothing to show for 30 years into the democracy. If anything, things are going from bad to worse. And then we cannot allow them to take everything. And also to win on the narrative that, they are oppressed, they are suffering, whereas they continue to be rich. Actually, I can even argue, Clement, that this dispensation has benefited them more than black people, to understand. So what they're doing, they're provoking black people. It doesn't mean that because the ANC is corrupt and we're not happy with the ANC, we're necessarily going to cave towards their racism. It's not going to happen. And they're provoking black people, And then this thing, Clement, is very much provocative. And then people are very angry with AfriForum as it is right now. And then, so the authorities have done well to remove it, just to create some form of harmony between people. Because we are angry as Africans. We have lost everything. We're also losing the narrative that once upon a time there was oppression, there was colonialism, there was imperialism, and we're left with nothing. And now this, no, it can't be.
Yeah, and James, I don't know how long we are going to have to explain why we've got policies around race in this country, even after apartheid. Because I actually don't think that people are, for lack of a better word, stupid not to understand the reason why those laws exist. And the basis there is also always the Constitution, right? So I think that people have chosen not to believe that. They've chosen a completely wrong narrative of why we have such laws. They always mention affirmative action. They always mention broad-based black economic empowerment. And they say these are packaged in beautiful words like equality, equity, inclusivity, but they are racial laws that don't work. That's the narrative that they have chosen. But how many times are we going to tell them that the reality is that despite significant gains since 1994, the legacy of apartheid is still present economically and spatially, which has contributed to South Africa being one of the least equal countries in the world. I mean, black South Africans, we make up over 80% of the over 62 million odd population. But they are burdened with the lingering inequalities of the past. So when you have laws such as Employment Equity Act, if you've got laws such as the Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act, the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act, they have sought to balance the scales. But they choose not to understand that. So I don't know how long we're going to have a debate with them about that. I mean, the Constitution as a whole should be a transformatory document. The Constitution appreciates that there's a need to correct the systematic injustices of the past and not entrench any economic model or the status quo. Because we live in an unequal society that has to be changed to bring about equality and to advance human rights. The Constitution was designed to protect rather than to restrict even the adoption of affirmative action measures. So I even get tired of talking to them because it ends up in that debate, and you are having a debate with people that have chosen the alternative narrative. It's like Donald Trump. Donald Trump has made up his mind. There are white people in this country that are facing a genocide. He doesn't have evidence. Nobody has evidence of that. Even the very same Solidarity and AfriForum tell Trump that they've said publicly, there's no genocide of white people in this country. Donald Trump will not change his narrative. And equally so, Solidarity has chosen this narrative. And I don't know where that's going to lead us. Do we accept that, well, they are part of our society, they're going to irritate us with their lies about this country and its policies, and we move on? Or should we accept to be agitated and irritated and always try to counter their narratives? It's 9:33. Let's get the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. Sean, Amando, I see your calls. The producers are also telling me that we've managed to get a hold of the JMPD. So I'll bring them up after the latest in Eyewitness News so that we can understand how the decision was taken for this banner to be removed. All of that coming up after the news. Sfiso, hi.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. Two siblings linked to the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes and celebrity chef Tibelo Mutswane are expected to arrive at King Shaka International Airport in Durban from Eswatini this morning. Brothers Malusi and Sianda Ndimande were arrested for the high-profile murder last year. They will stand trial with 5 co-accused in court. Forbes and Mutswane were shot dead outside a Durban restaurant in 2023. Police spokesperson Atlenda Mate says the pair have boarded a plane in Eswatini under a heavy police guard.
They will be landing shortly. The lead investigator in this case has arrived at King Shaka International Airport, where he will execute the J50 warrant of arrest against the 2 suspects. They're going to be formally arrested in South Africa.
Alleged crime kingpin Katiso Katie Mulife will report to court this morning for a consolidation of the cases against him. Mulife was granted 400,000 rand bail by the Johannesburg High Court last month. He is accused of the murder of several high-profile individuals, including Opa Sifuka, known as DJ Somebody. And the Commission for Gender Equality has called on Parliament to review the country's almost 70-year-old law on witchcraft as part of his investigation into statutory rape and teen pregnancies. Commissioner Princess Eureka Mukhane says acts practiced under the guise of religion, but which harm the rights of children, also need to be called out. Those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 10 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Wet, slippery roads in rainy Gauteng, so allow for extra traveling time this morning. Maintain a safe following distance and keep your headlights on. At this stage in the Pretoria area heading into the CBD, there's about a 30-minute delay on Paul Kruger. That's opposite Pretoria Zoo. Woodmead traveling towards Sandton. There's traffic pressure. This is M1 southbound between the Batu Interchange and Ethel Oaklands. Also heading into Sandton, expect about a 20-minute delay in the Morningside area on Rivonia Road between Calvin and Greyston. In Calvin, Alex area, we still have those roadworks causing about a 20-minute delay heading towards Midrand. That's the N3 northbound from London Road to the Batu Interchange. And finally, Kempton Park roadworks also causing about a 30-minute delay. R24 westbound between the R21 Atlas off-ramp and Barbara Road. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Africa Milani.
Weekday mornings,
4 to 6.
I've been asking all morning listeners' favorite books that they remember reading from school, perhaps the first book they read or whatever they're currently reading. What is yours, Terence?
I think for me it would actually be Animal Farm. I think I learned quite a lot from that book, just about life itself and just about leadership and how, life can really just go against certain terms.
If you have not seen a play adaptation of Animal Farm, then next time they produce it, please go and see it because it is absolutely fascinating. Terence Kala is the acting director for communications at Department of Basic Education.
Africa Milani.
4 to 6 on 702.
Smart Steve from Momentum. Hello.
Steve, you moved to Momentum. Congrats.
Thanks.
It's Tasha. Listen, the fast-paced life in Josie just isn't working for me. I'm migrating to the Cape.
What does that have to do with life insurance?
Well, I love a glass or 3. And I want to age as graciously as a smooth Merlot, not a box of cardboard dough.
Naturally.
And I need my critical illness cover to pair with those chill vibes.
Of course. With Momentum, you get the most comprehensive critical illness cover in the market. You could say it's a full-bodied offering.
I'll toast to that.
Chat to your financial advisor about Momentum's critical illness cover. Momentum, protecting your journey to success. Momentum is an authorized financial services and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Brush, stroke, paint, color, protect, and admire. From roof paint to exterior textures and interior silk, Warrior Paints has it all. The product range and stylish colors are amazing. And what's more, Warrior Paints has crushed prices for incredible savings. Enjoy that good old-fashioned personal service you deserve. For price, quality, variety and service, Warrior Paints is street ahead. Warrior Paints, affordable, lasting, luxury.
What do partners of the Gates Foundation do when facing the world's toughest challenges? They keep going. From discovering a plastic drape that helps detect excessive postpartum bleeding faster, to developing better bed nets to kill malaria-carrying mosquitoes, to researching an RSV vaccine that could save hundreds of thousands of children. For every problem, there are people who prove that progress is possible. The Gates Foundation, partners of human potential. Learn more at gatesfoundation.org/keep going.
The Money Show.
Weekday evenings at 6.
Shamil Jusub is the CEO at the Vodacom Group. Shamil, the Makate case, you're not going to tell me how much, are you?
No.
Well, I'm glad we got that out the way.
Effectively, it's in the numbers, it's recorded, it's there. Of course, you can see lots of speculation on what the number is, but, I think from our side, we're just happy to have closed the issue and to move on. And I think so are investors.
The Money Show
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Curtis is brought to you by ABSA CIB, named Best Cash Management Services in Africa at the 2025 EMEA Finance Treasury Services Awards.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
20 minutes before 10 o'clock. This is the 702 open line, and we're taking your calls on 011-883-0702. We've been talking about this ad by Solidarity. They've placed an ad on the M1 in Johannesburg labeling South Africa as the most race-regulated country in the world. And the advertisement has now been removed, and we're told that has been removed by the Johannesburg Metro Police Department, and Solidarity is now threatening legal action following this removal. Xolani Fihla is the spokesperson for the JMPD, joining us on the line. Xolani, thanks for your time. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Did you, as the JMPD, remove this banner, and on what basis?
Thank you once again, Clement. One thing that's important to know that through the City of Johannesburg, we've got various bylaws that regulate how the city works, and one of these bylaws is outdoor advertising bylaws. And for one person who wants to advertise whatever signage that they need to do, they need to apply through the city, and that then has to be regulated and checked if it is okay and the process has been followed, and then a payment then needs to be done for the advertisement to be put up. And with this particular one, obviously you have to go through the Department of Development Planning with the outdoor advertisement unit, and then they'll give you the full process. And with the information that we do have at the present moment is that the signage was not applied for to the City of Johannesburg, and also the City of Johannesburg has the prerogative to decide what kind of messages then should be put up on whatever public space that is within the City of Johannesburg, and that's the reason why the signage was removed. There was no application, and also the city has a prerogative of what type of messages should be put up.
Okay, so they're lying then when they're saying that they've paid for the advertising space, they've followed the necessary procedures to run this campaign.
On our side, we don't have that information from them, and if they do have any type of paperwork that says the contrary, then let them bring forward, and we'll take it further.
Okay, so so would they have applied to the agency or the department that you have referred to, or would they have to interact and interface with the Johannesburg Metro Police as well?
No, they have to apply through the outdoor advertising unit. And once that is approved, or if it's not approved, then the JMPD is called in for any type of enforcement for outdoor advertising.
Okay, so what was that department you mentioned as well that they would have to speak to?
It's the Department of Development Planning, and the actual unit is outdoor advertising unit.
Okay, and you've spoken to the Department of Development Planning. They told you that they don't have any
I spoke to the unit of outdoor advertising, and they have confirmed that they haven't received any type of application.
Okay, so these people just mounted this long banner without having followed the process.
It happens a lot, and especially on that piece of route, either just at a Wits University or just after towards Oxford Road. We usually find people who put up signages there without proper compliance with the City of Johannesburg.
Okay.
It's not the first one.
Okay, that's quite interesting. Xolani Fihla, JMPD spokesperson, thank you for speaking to us. And also, just to check, what are the sanctions for doing something like this? So if people are putting up all of these ads, they're using advertising space illegally, because it is illegal if they've not applied and went through the normal processes. What are the consequences for that? Do you just rip apart their banners, or can there be sanctions here?
The consequences and sanctions, of course, is either through fines and material and tools used then can be impounded.
Okay. Xolani Fihla, JMPD spokesperson, thanks for making time for us. I think what we'll do is also bring in solidarity and ask them why they have put up this banner without following the process. Their argument is that they've followed every single process and they've made the payment. I'd like to see the evidence of that, because somebody here is not telling us the truth. It's 15 minutes now before 10 o'clock.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
On 702.
Armando, you're in Kempton Park. What are your thoughts? Hi.
You.
Hi, Armando.
Hey, good afternoon. Sorry, good morning. Jeez, love.
Sure, go ahead.
Look, man, I think the sign, whether it's legal or whether it's illegal, was incorrect to put it up there. There's a time and a place for everything.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to divorce your wife, you don't put in the Star newspaper, I want to divorce you. I think whether it's right or whether it's wrong, there's a time and a place. But Clement, in this whole thing, when we're talking about the BEE and affirmative action and all of that, as a white guy in South Africa, 58 years old, that runs a business, I just need everybody to know that me and all my mates who are in business today would welcome any day that every single black person in South Africa is well paid. And that is because every day there are hundreds, if not thousands, of black people that walk past my business with only 5 rand in his pocket. And I wish he had 7,000 rand so that he can walk in and spend it with me. So that the 140 black staff that I employ every single month can get paid better and better, and the business can thrive. So listen to this. We as whites, me and my mates, want you and all black people to please prosper, because the side effect of that prosperity is spending money with me. I don't know how people could even think that white people don't want black people to prosper, because we, the business owners, we do much better. We buy nicer cars, we buy bigger homes, we live nicely. So why on earth would I be so bloody stupid to want to keep a black guy in the doldrums? And I want to tell you another thing. On our one caller of the week, when Jerry Chris Williams was still hosting a show, I phoned him and I said, listen, one of the things that's happening to white people today, the young boys that are 22 and 20, and you must listen to this because this is scary. The 23 or 24-year-old goes out who tries to find a job, say the post office or government position, maybe a big corporate. They say, I'm sorry, you're a white guy, we have to have a 75% black quota. The white guy then leaves. He goes, you know what, I'm going to go hungry. So what he does is he somehow starts a small business. And before he knows it, he's employing 15 or 20 black guys. He's 26 years old. He's driving an M4, where in my day when I was 24 years old, I was walking. There was no way that it was going to happen. And so what you're finding today is the young white guys are forced into business and then realizing they're actually quite good at it. And that is why I asked the question today when I go into businesses. I go, who owns this? Who owns this petrol station? Who owns this pizza place? Or that hardware shop? It's always a white guy. But all the very, very wealthy black guys are all politicians. And I'm saying, why does Vumsimsi not own the pizza shop? And Chabalala, why does he not own the hardware shop and create those jobs? And this is what gets to me.
Yeah, and of course, there are Chabalalas who own that. I've got black friends who own very successful businesses. I've got people I consider as mentors who are black, successful business people. But I get your point, Amando, that, you are saying as a white person, there's no reason why you wouldn't want to see a black person prosper. Absolutely. And I'm glad to hear that. But getting to that prosperity is not just going to come. You need legislation to get there. We were the most racist country probably in the world at some point during apartheid. Why? Because there were laws. Apartheid was legislated. Black people, not because they were terrible human beings, just because of the color of the skins, they were deprived of opportunities. I've got family members who are uneducated, who grew up in the villages because they were dispossessed of their land and they never had a chance to at least work towards bettering their lives. And we are the generation. Many of us are coming from families where we're the first generation that begins to have a job, to go to university. And I'm saying, because there were laws that legislated apartheid and deprived black people from opportunities, in this time of our lives, we are going to need laws that are going to reverse that engineering. Because things were engineered to be this way. And if they're going to continue this way, this country is not going to see peace. It's not. So what is it going to take? It's not going to take us being so kind and saying, oh, we want everybody to prosper. It's going to take legislation being implemented. What legislation has been implemented? Well, that's why we've got affirmative action. Sim Chabalala will tell you, this is one of the most successful group CEOs of one of the most leading banks on the continent. He didn't get a job just because he's black. He got it because he's bloody talented and he knows what he's doing. And that's a man who got that opportunity through affirmative action. And the problem I have is often we want to criticize, rightly so. You can criticize Triple BE, you can criticize what happens with affirmative action, but please remember that there are people whose lives are much better today because of the very laws that have been implemented to try and level the playing field. Our very constitution that all of us celebrate, the Bill of Rights, the first of the Bill of Rights is equality. The founding provisions of Chapter 1 of the Constitution, they provide for a democratic state which is founded, among other things, the achievement of equality and the advancement of human rights and freedoms. So, remedial action based on race, gender, disability, you name it, all of that is constitutionally permissible. 10 minutes before 10.
702 Afternoons
with Relebogile Mabota, 1 to 3 p.m.
What is the call for, Marlies? What are you asking? If Cyril called in right now and said, I've heard your cries, what would you like me to do? What are you asking the president to do?
We need to declare gender-based violence and femicide a national disaster. The same way that they did with COVID, they were mobilizing funds, resources so quickly. Why do the women and children of this country don't deserve the same kind of attention? All we want is for them to put resources in the right place. The promises have not been fulfilled, not one of them.
Operations and Advocacy Coordinator at Women for Change, Marlies Joget.
702 Afternoons
with Relebogile Mabota.
Let's walk the talk.
Classics on Turf is back, where golf and classical music meet in one unforgettable Johannesburg night. Join 702 at Kilani Country Club on Friday, the 14th of October, as Kutlwano Maset leads a full orchestra bursting with energy, color, and rhythm. Sharing the stage, Judith Sipuma brings her velvet voice and unmatched charm to a proudly South African musical celebration. Your ticket includes delicious canapes and welcome drinks, and with a rain-proof setup, the show goes on no matter the weather. Book now at quicket.co.za. Classics on Turf is proudly made possible by Telkom and brought to you in partnership with 702.
The joy of what if we just let it go to voicemail. The joy of what if we skipped the flight for a front row seat to the open road. The joy of what if the wrong turn took us the right way. The joy of what if we didn't share this view and kept it our secret. The joy of what if not being there yet was the best part. Choose the joy of what if with BMW.
Make waves with Hollywood Bets in the Splash the Cash tournament for your shot at a share of 1 million rand. Top the weekly leaderboard in this thrilling competition for your chance at a mad cash dash. Simply bet 2 rand or more on Playtech slots or 100 rand or more on Playtech live casino games to enter. Get locked, loaded and ready to play. It's more fun to spin with us. Bet now. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0170.
To celebrate 25 years of helping you live the Premier life, FNB Premier is giving you a chance to win a 14-day European tour experience and other cool monthly prizes. Open any FNB Premier account from September to 31 December 2025. Switch your salary, swipe or tap a minimum of 2,000 Rand per month for 3 months straight. Spend and win with FNB Premier. FNB, help changes everything. TCs and competition rules apply. FNB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized financial services and credit provider.
Your voice,
Your station.
your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
On 702.
6 minutes before 10 o'clock, we're still trying to get a hold of Solidarity. I'm trying to get proof that they have gone through the outdoor advertising unit. They've interacted with the Department of Development Planning, and they've made the necessary payments because that's what they've claimed. So we're still trying to get a hold of them. We're not winning, but as soon as we do, I'll bring them on the radio. Sean, you're calling us from Johannesburg. You run a media business, I understand. Go ahead. Good morning.
Morning. Yeah, so I think there's both sides of the story are possibly true. JMPD probably doesn't have any, or the outdoor advertising and Department of Planning doesn't have any application from Solidarity because it wouldn't have been made by them. It would have been made by a company that actually applied to own a JPC asset. So those sites on the side of the M1 sit under the GRA, which is managed by Joburg Property Company. And they would have had, given a business like myself, a media owner, the rights to have a structure there. But I don't think that that's a legal structure. So Solidarity would have paid the media company for the rights to be on that site, but that's an illegal structure. So JMPD had every right to take it down.
Sean, thank you. I'm in Johannesburg. Let's go to WhatsApp on 072 702 1702.
Hi, Clement. This is Cyril Tutsuman. Clement, really, but why? Yeah, I understand all their frustrations, but why do it now? You know, we have problems enough now with Trump in America because of this Solidarity and AfriForum. But you know what? This government must wake up as well and try to give service to the people of this country equally.
I mean, the reason why people were putting these banners without consulting the bylaws is because the city of Johannesburg neglected these bylaws for a long time. So people think it's free for all. It's a good thing that they've removed. They must follow the law. And there must be sanctions as well for these people who are doing this. The city of Johannesburg must sustain this thing and not compromise at all. Sindile.
Morning, Clement. You know what? These racists want to make a statement. JMPD and Panyaza, whoever, must also make a statement of their own of intolerance. Remove these nonsensical banners. We will deal with the legalities once the G20 summit is over. We must stifle racists and not give them room to breathe. Bopelo from Benoni.
Hi, Clement. Just one thought. For the rule of law to be the rule of law, it has to be the same for everyone. Is the banner that AfriForum and Solidarity put up, is it any less constitutionally correct than singing "Kill the Boer, shoot the Boer," which was deemed by the court to not be unconstitutional? It's not against the law to sing that. So is this banner worse than that we need to pull it down? Just a thought.
Good morning, Clement. Danny here from Midrand.
Look, I think JMPD flopile. I mean, they failed to stop this before it went up to the highway. So it's pointless for them to remove it now. And clearly, somebody somewhere is not doing their jobs accurately, because they could have seen this before it went out and they could have dealt with it then. You know, we already know that Solidarity does not have any good intentions for Black South Africans.
Part of the 702 family.
Hi, 702 family. My name is David Khasao. I'm from Naturena, Soweto. I've been listening to 702 since I was still young. At the age of 20, even today, I'm still listening to 702. So I'm gaining a lot in terms of information from 702. Thank you so much.
Welcome to our 702 family. Let's walk the talk.
As leaders in renewable energy finance, Nedbank has a track record spanning over 100 years. From pioneering large-scale solar and wind farms to financing complex energy infrastructure in emerging markets, Nedbank offers clients deep sector expertise, combined with the ability to navigate the unique challenges of Africa's just energy transition. See money differently. Nedbank. Nedbank is a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
A man driven to the edge. I don't know where you are. I don't know who you're with. When his beloved takeaway was taken away. I will look for you. I will find you. And I will eat you.
It's the Summer of Stars at Simply Asia. Stand a chance to win a Toyota Starlet when you spend 200 Rand or more on our famous flavors. Order now. Simply Asia. Connecting the Thaiway.
To walk the talk is to turn words into meaningful actions. And it's what we at 702 are committed to doing every day. We are also committed to following the rules set out by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission's Code of Conduct. To give you balanced programming, fair comments, and accurate news. But if we stumble along the way and you feel we are not living up to the code, let us know on comment@702.co.za. And if after that you're still not happy, you can direct your complaint in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission. Email bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more, visit bccsa.co.za.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulum. The brothers extradited from Eswatini to stand trial for the murder of rapper Kinan aka Forbes and celebrity chef Tebelo Mutwane will arrive in Durban shortly. Malusi and Sianda Ndimande were arrested for the high-profile murder last year and they will stand trial with 4 co-accused in court in KwaZulu-Natal. Forbes and Mutwane were shot dead outside a Durban restaurant in 2023. Police spokesperson Atlenda Mate.
They will be landing shortly. The lead investigator in this case has arrived at King Shaka International Airport, where he will execute the J50 warrant of arrest against the 2 suspects. They are going to be formally arrested in South Africa.
Alleged crime kingpin Katiso Katie Mulife will report to court this morning for a consolidation of the cases against him. Mulife was granted 400,000 Rand bail by the Johannesburg High Court last month. He's accused of the murder of several high-profile individuals, including Opa Sifuka, known as DJ Sambodi. Khomozo Modise reports.
The last time Katiso Katie Mulife attended proceedings at the Alexandra Magistrates Court, he was in police custody and was brought for judgment on bail, which was denied. But after the Johannesburg High Court overturned this decision, this morning Mulefe will come to court as a free member of the public. Today's cases are set to be consolidated ahead of his trial. When Mulefe was arrested last year, it was in connection with the murder of Vereniging engineer Armand Swart. Police further linked him through firearms to the murders of popular musicians DJ Sambodi and DJ Vintos, whose real names were Opa Sifuka and Hector Buthelezi. Today, Mulefe will make an appearance alongside the alleged hitmen. The state wants Mulefe to be tried for the matters against him in a single court. Khomozo Modise, Eyewitness News.
National Director of Public Prosecutions, Shamila Batoyi, will appear before Parliament's ad hoc committee today to answer to allegations of interference levelled against prosecutors. Batoyi is also said to be questioned about the operations of the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, which falls within the NPA. Her testimony follows IDEC head Andrea Johnson's evidence before the committee last week. Babalondenza reports.
National Prosecuting Authority head Shamila Batoyi's appearance follows weeks of submissions that implicated prosecutors. KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, during his testimony, made allegations of infiltration in the criminal justice system that include prosecutors, politicians and members of the judiciary. Batoyi can also expect questions that IDEC was part of a project to arrest crime intelligence head Tumsani Khumalo to scupper investigations involving the so-called Big Five crime syndicate. Committee Chairperson Servet Lechanyane said during yesterday's planning meeting that Batoyi's testimony will only be for 1 day. Minister Senzo Mchunu Chief of Staff Cedric Nkabinde will take the stand on Thursday. Baba Londenza, Eyewitness News.
The Commission for Gender Equality has called on Parliament to review the country's almost 70-year-old law on witchcraft as part of its investigation into statutory rape and teen pregnancies. Commissioner Princess Eureka Mokhane says acts practiced under the guise of religion but which harm the rights of children also need to be called out. The Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities continued its engagements yesterday with organizations and civil society groups on the matter. The committee is looking to make recommendations to Parliament aimed at providing greater protection to children. Lindsay Dentlinker reports.
Civil society groups have presented Parliament with similar findings that statutory rape matters are often covered up by families themselves, reluctant to report perpetrators because of the financial benefits they often derive to stay silent. Despite being obligatory in law, health professionals and educators seldom report cases due to ignorance or fearing reprisal. But Gender Equality Commissioner Eureka Mokhane says witchcraft can't be discounted as an influencing factor in child rape.
We find that there are key business individuals, there are key community leaders who are told that if you want to have more power, if you want to have more wealth, sleep with virgins.
The Witchcraft Suppression Act of 1957 was last amended in 1970 to prescribe punishments for such acts. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
And Cape Town International Airport says it's managing record numbers of passengers. The airport has reported an early surge in travel this year, with more than 1 million travellers touching down in Cape Town last month. Access Offense Dijo says this milestone is usually only seen during the December period.
With this early surge in travel, we kindly remind everyone to arrive 3 hours before international flights and 2 hours before domestic flights to allow enough time for check-in, security screening and boarding.
Gold is trading at $4,143.85 an ounce. The rand is at 17.15 to the dollar, 22.59 to the pound, 19.82 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $63.94 a barrel.
Calvin Alex area roadworks still causing about a 20-minute delay heading towards Midrand. That's the N3 northbound between London Road and the Butler Interchange, Kempton Park. Also expect about a 30-minute delay on the R24 westbound between the R21 Atlas off-ramp and Barbara Road, also due to roadworks. And heading into Sandton, there's about a 20-minute delay. This is in the Morningside area on Rivonia Road between Kelvin and Greyston.
A partly cloudy day in store for Gauteng with afternoon scattered thunder showers. The temperatures will peak at highs between 22 and 24 degrees. The developing story in EWM this hour. The brothers extradited from Eswatini to stand trial for the murder of AKA Forbes and celebrity chef Dibelo Mutswane will arrive shortly at Shaga International Airport in Durban.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7 and 106 FM.
7 minutes after 10 o'clock. Dumelang, welcome to the second hour of the Clement Manyathela Show. Thanks for staying with us here on 702. Thank you for your contributions on the 702 open line through your calls, your WhatsApps, your tweets, on the YouTube channel as well. We have been trying to get a hold of Solidarity. I think it's Clement Mulder, who is one of the leaders of Solidarity. They had agreed to talk to us, but he's now not answering his call. And I really wanted to hear from him following the conversation that we had with the JMPD, because the JMPD says there are processes that were meant to be followed. You have to interact with the outdoor advertising unit, which is an agency of the Department of Development Planning, and they're saying all of that didn't happen. And yet Solidarity has gone around to claim that it has made the necessary payments, it has paid for this advertising space and followed all the necessary procedures to run this campaign. So I wanted to hear from them, but also to ask for the evidence that the payment was made, because as you heard from the other caller, this happens a lot. And maybe part of the problem is that the JMPD is sleeping on the job. There are so many people that are putting up advertising, some of it false advertising, in and around the city of Johannesburg, and it's illegal advertising. And clearly the JMPD has not been doing its job. I'm told that Clement Mulder may be still in another interview, but I think as soon as he finishes, hopefully before we wrap up the show, we'll dedicate about 2 or 3 minutes or so to bring him on the line. It's 9 minutes now after 10.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
702.
We start our conversation right now with NERSA, the National Energy Regulator of South Africa. The chairperson of NERSA is Thembani Bukula, who's joining us now in studio. If you've got some questions, you've got some concerns, some inputs, you want to join this conversation, you can call us on 011-883-0702 or send your WhatsApps on 072-702-1702. Mr. Bukula, thank you so much for making time. Good morning. All right, we've got your mic on now. I want us to start with the core mandate of NERSA so that you can help us understand what your mandate is, because my understanding is you've got to regulate the electricity, the piped gas and petroleum pipelines industries. And I'm just wondering, how do you then balance between consumer protection but also ensuring the financial viability in these sectors?
Thank you. As you've stated, NERSA regulates the electricity industry from the point of generation right up to the point of consumption. In the piped gas industry, we only regulate the transmission part of the piped gas. We don't regulate the distribution nor the reticulation of gas. In the petroleum pipelines industry, we also regulate just the pipelines, that is from the pipelines that come from the coast to the inland. And we mainly do the licensing, the pricing, which is the one that I think would be topical, the conformance to the license conditions, that is the enforcement of that conformance, as well as then your customer care in the areas where we are required to have customers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how are those sectors doing? Because I think, South Africa's gas and petroleum pipeline sectors are often overshadowed by electricity issues. What progress is being made in those specific sectors?
So in your piped gas industry, the gas that was sold in there or used in those pipelines was mainly from Mozambique. As you know, we are right at the end of that gas production in Mozambique, what we normally call the gas cliff. So we are now going to be looking at other sources of gas that can be used by the industries that were using the gas from Mozambique. Sasol, who was the main player, is looking at other options. In your petroleum pipelines, we have the pipelines that are from the coast, mainly Durban, that bring the product up to the inland, and that has been run by Transnet. And we are seeing a change in the way that the product is moved from the coast to here. It's more trucks these days than the pipeline, and I think we can talk about the reasons for that.
What are the reasons for that?
I think the main reason has always been that when you are using your trucks to transport your product, you've got more flexibility than when it's in the pipeline and it's going to wait for the scheduling and the storage facilities. And you also can get it to your destination much faster.
Yeah. So, of course, the issue of pricing, as you say, is one that's more topical. South Africans are mostly concerned about the price of electricity, and often when you point fingers at Eskom then says, but it's NESA that's determining, or part of the process of determining the pricing. Can you help our listeners understand to what extent you are involved and what the process is before even pricing is determined?
Okay. So let's start with this. NESA is a creature of statute. Everything and anything that it does has been stipulated in the statutes, whether it's in the, let's focus on electricity for now. So in electricity, there's your policy, which is your electricity pricing policy, which dictates how NESA must evaluate Eskom's application. And then you have your Electricity Regulation Act, which also says that you must enable an efficient licensee to recover the full cost of the license activity and afford them a reasonable return. Now, there's a part that's sometimes hidden if we go back to the electricity pricing policy. The electricity pricing policy dictates that when Eskom applies to us and when we evaluate Eskom's application, all of their assets, we must use what is called the modern equivalent asset value of those assets. So what that means is that most of Eskom's assets, most of their power stations had been fully depreciated. And when you use the modern equivalent, you then take an asset that was evaluated at 1 rand, you have to give an equivalent of it if it was to be built today. So it becomes from 1 rand, it becomes 200 billion rand. And that's the structure and the legislation under which NESA has to operate.
Is that regardless of the operational efficiency of those assets? Because you can determine them like that, but then we're also dealing with assets here that are not at their top functionality. So
the fact and the truth of the matter is that modern equivalent does not really consider that, and our methodologies never really anticipated that some of these assets would not perform at that level. But however, even with that, you then try and find a way of extracting those efficiencies of that. It is not as good as a new one, it's old and it's not performing at that level in the way that you would then say this is the equivalent of that. But what it does is it makes an asset that has been fully paid for, fully depreciated, to have a value. Now you can argue that that's not the fairest of way, but if you were to sell that asset to a private entity, it would probably also do minor repairs or if anything, or refurbishment, but still bring it back then as an asset closer to that value.
Yeah. How much consideration do you make in as far as public consultations are concerned? So as you determine the pricing, do you consider just the state of the country, the state of the economy, and the affordability levels of households as well?
I think as you had indicated when you started, our function is really to find that delicate balance between the sustainability of the entity that we're regulating and the affordability of the services that they're providing. And in our public consultations, which we do nationally, we take into consideration all of those inputs. In fact, when I started at the regulator some years ago, it used to be the industries that would come and talk about affordability of electricity. That was when it was still 18 cents per kilowatt hour. The complexion of these public hearings has now completely changed. You have 10% of the industries and 90% of the consumers. And yes, what they really would want to see is electricity at the lowest cost.
And yet it increases, which is why I'm asking about how big of a consideration it is, because sometimes it feels like even after the public consultations, because I doubt that in the state of our economy now, you've got people who come and say to NESA, okay, we see why you want to increase or why the electricity is considered to increase like this. We're good with that. I mean, a lot of them are going to say, no, we can't afford it. And yet, we still see an increase.
Maybe the starting point is not NASA. The starting point is Eskom. Eskom is the one that applies to NASA, and NASA adjudicates what Eskom has applied for in accordance with the laws of this country. So when you go back to Eskom, and I know that we will not be able to finish this conversation without talking about the corruption, the over expenditure, and all of that. But when you look at their costs, the ones that they would put forward as being the costs of them running that operation, yes, there are increases in those costs. And yes, NASA, within the confines of the law, finds those areas where they can reduce the cost of Eskom. But we are also hamstrung by the legislation that has enacted us.
But ultimately, as NASA, you've got the power. So even if Eskom says we want an increase of 23%, because they're also considering, their debt levels or operational costs, you name it, the power still lies with you to determine whether or not that would be fair. And you can incredibly take that lower following all the processes and the consultations.
Yeah. It's not unfettered power. We've got the powers, but we have to do it within the conscience. For instance, I said to you that the Electricity Regulation Act says that you must enable an efficient licensee. So the first part is around efficiency. So when we determine that they're inefficient, then yes, we can take those costs of being inefficient. But still, we have to allow them the full cost of the licensed activities and include a reasonable return. So the other area where we have a discretion is in the return. So in the return, if Eskom is entitled, say, to a 10% return, and when we look at their operations and we look at their debt service requirements, debt service ratio, liquidity ratios, we don't give them the 10%. We give them something less than that just to cover their... So we have the discretion, but like I said, it's not unfettered.
Yeah. What do you think, speaking of the price of electricity, what do you think will be the impact of the Electricity Regulation Amendment Bill? It was at some point, Parliament had passed it was proposed law. Did the president end up signing it?
Yes,
I think it did.
Enacted.
Yeah?
It started being operational on the 1st of January this year.
This year.
Yeah.
What do you think is the impact? Because I remember when I spoke to the electricity minister about it, there was a lot of conversation about the impact this will have on the price of electricity. And I remember asking, okay, what becomes the role of NESA? Because if they're saying that we're going to get the most competitive price of electricity, I mean, does this move us to the lowest cost pricing available in the market? And what then becomes the role of NESA? What do you see as the impact of this law?
So the impact of the law in as far as your grade to consumers is the fact that economic principles kind of indicate that if you have competitors in a market, the other players in the market are likely going to find a way of reducing their costs so that they can sell their product. And therefore, you are likely going to have the lowest cost produced product. And once you have the lowest cost produced product, you probably will then have the lowest pricing of that product. So the changes in the Electricity Regulation Act of introducing a market are aimed at producing your lowest cost of the electricity services. So it should be positive. However, it is also a market that has investors that invest their money in the areas where they would make the most returns. So it is not as if just because you've introduced a competition, it is going to be cutting costs or subsidizing that. The only reason that investors come in is to make their money.
Yeah.
So you're likely going to have that. Now, when you ask what does NASA do, even in areas where there are markets, you still have a regulator. You still have an entity that must ensure that there's non-discrimination in the way that the common services are used. There's also no unfair competition in the way that things are used. Are done as we are competing. Like if you look at South Africa, for the next 20 years at least, we are still going to have Eskom being the dominant player supplying at least more than 60 or 70% of the electricity that will be required here.
Yeah.
And so you still need a regulator to ensure that the playing fields are level.
So the issue of the miscalculated Eskom revenue application, that mistake, does it threaten to increase electricity costs? And to give context to some of the listeners that may not be aware, as NESA, you have admitted to making this staggering 54 billion rand error in your calculations of Eskom's revenue requirements. I know that you've announced the suspension of a senior staff member who was involved, but what's the ultimate outcome for the consumer? Because they listen to this and they think, how is this going to affect me?
So let's start at the mistake. So as I had said to you, that there are rules and methodologies that we must adhere to. So the error that was made by NASA was not of allowing or giving Eskom in their regulated asset base that additional 54 billion rand. And it was really clerical more than being a deliberate or lack of competence. Eskom has got 3 applications that they submit to NASA. It's for the generation, the transmission, or what is called now National Transmission Company of South Africa, or NTCSA, and the distribution. And they are exactly the same. The difference is that it's the assets that are in there, they are different. And NASA correctly calculated the regulated asset base for transmission, correctly calculated the regulated asset base for distribution, correctly calculated the regulated asset base for generation in the first year. The error was in carrying the opening balance to the other years that made that 54 billion rand error. But had NASA done it correctly then, consumers were going to pay that amount anyway. So our error is not an error that's making consumers pay more. Our error was making consumers pay less, but correcting it, yes, does make consumers pay more. But it was the money that Eskom was entitled to anyway.
So the process of correcting it is what's going to put up an additional cost on consumers.
Yes.
Why was the error not corrected when it was identified internally? My understanding is that it was picked up, was it in January this year?
Yes.
Why wasn't it corrected then?
It is still the mystery that we as the regulator are still investigating. And I think, like I said, because it was clerical, because it was not supposed to have been there, because it was also confirmed that it has been corrected, we still do not understand how did it filter through into that. And what is different about this error is that, you see, in the other errors that NASA had made in the determination of that, they were, I don't want to say deliberate, they were either because the employees were trying to find those areas in the application where they can reduce costs, but when you do that and you do it in a manner that's misaligned to what the legislation says, that's when Eskom would take us to court. In this particular one, it was none of that. It was identified sin, and it was supposed to be that, and it really was a clerical error that's why we are having the investigators. I would not be wanting to preempt what they are going to say, but they are going to tell us where our controls failed. But yes, there's a part of our controls that failed.
Because you've got your own auditing, you've got your quality assurance processes.
Yeah. So I don't want to start saying that it was a version, but let's have someone independent who's doing this tell us how it didn't get corrected when it was required to be corrected.
Yeah, and I mean, consumers are really struggling already, and now they're going to be paying more for a clerical error of NASA. It's not
consumers
fair.
were going to pay that amount if NASA had not made that mistake.
But in fixing the mistake, they're going to pay more.
No. But so what was going to happen, Mr. Manyathela, was that when we did the determination, if we had done it correctly, the increase would have been what it is going to be now. But because we had that error, we then underestimated the increase. So correcting it just makes it to what it was going to be anyway, if we had not made the error.
So now what you have done, because of the error, it was underestimate.
Yes.
Yeah. So which means consumers would have paid
less.
Yes. And how long are they going to pay less before then? Once you fix the error, then the actual.
So the error in as far as the settlement, which is also still being challenged by AfriForum and and another organization, is supposed to, the correction is supposed to happen next year, 1st of April for Eskom customers and 1st of July for municipal customers. But it's still being contested, and that would be just for 2 years, because that was an error that was made in the 2 years. In the multi-year determination, that was for 3 years.
Is that going to be affected also by, because when is Eskom due to also ask for another increase? I don't know. Does it happen on a yearly basis?
It happens on a yearly basis.
So if Eskom asks for an increase, and then we're going to deal with this increase from the error that is being corrected, then that's like a double whammy for, even though initially had you done this correctly, that would have been an increase, but it becomes like a double whammy. So instead of like just the 1%, for argument's sake, that Eskom is asking for and that you agree to do, now you have to add another 1% because that comes from the error that you are correcting.
Okay, so the way the multi-year price determination works, so we have an application by Eskom for 3 years, so we make the determination over the 3-year period, but it happens, so that increase that we have determined only gets implemented on the 1st of April every year for Eskom customers, 1st of July for municipal customers. So this correction of the error is going to be effective on the 1st of April 2026. And then the second one, 1st of April 2027, as it was for the 3 years. But beyond that, there would be a different application by Eskom. But let me also indicate to you that there is something called a regulatory clearing account that is an account that we use to say that you have given us this focus. Let us also see whether you have achieved the sales that you said you wanted to achieve, you have spent the monies that you said you want to spend. And if you have not achieved the sales or not spent the money, there's also that opportunity of Eskom then having to give back the money to the consumers. So it's not all lost, but yes, we still need to wait for Eskom to provide us with that information.
Does NESA have enough independence legally and even politically to carry out its mandate without an interference from government or even these major energy players like Eskom? And I'm asking that because I remember a time when South Africans were concerned about what Eskom wanted as an increase, what they had asked you, like, or applied to you as an increase, and the president made a statement that he's somehow going to intervene or he's going to speak to Eskom. And I remember thinking, but he doesn't have the power to do that. If anybody, in fact, wants to challenge a determination that's made by NESA, you've got to approach the courts. I don't know if I got that wrong, but my main question is, do you have the independence legally and politically?
Let me start by yes, and a big yes. We have the independence from that. And yes, you are correct in that if we do something wrong, or if someone wants to challenge our decision, the only route is going to court. It's not going through a minister. And even if we make a mistake in our own decisions, we can't just change it. We have to go to court and to request that application. Now, when you look at the decision-making process, which is where you really can ascertain your independence, it is the fact that you do not have any undue influence from other parties on the decision we are going to make. And how you safeguard that is by making sure that the rules that you are going to use, you make them public, you make them known, you become transparent about that. And that is a way of reducing any undue influence in the decisions that you're going to make. But I have to say that government departments, as much as we are implementing the policies and the legislation that has been established by these government departments, when we implement it independently of their influence. We are not influenced, but we do not go and ask for permission from the minister or anyone to make the decisions that we make. So clearly independent, but I think your true test of independence is when you have the transparency, when you have the rules that are going to be used and you can take them, make your own calculations. Yes, there would be one or two of those areas where there's the discretion of the regulator, like in the return, that you cannot come to the same answer. But ordinarily, with the methodology and with the things that are there, you can make your own calculations and come to an answer after Eskom has applied.
All right, it's 10:32. Let's get the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. When we come back, we continue this conversation with the chairperson at NERSA, Tembani Bukula. I see some of your questions coming through on the WhatsApp line. I'll put them to Mr. Bukula. Your calls as well on 011-883-0702. Sfiso, hi.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. We start with news just in. The attempted murder case of alleged crime boss Vusmuzi Ket Matlala has been transferred to the High Court for trial. Matlala appeared in the Alexandra Magistrates Court today for the centralization of his cases. He's accused of organizing a hit on socialite former girlfriend Tebogo Tobejane and also faces 10 other attempted murder charges involving high-profile individuals. In another development this morning, two brothers linked to the murders of rapper Kenan aka Forbes and celebrity chef Tibelo Mutswane will be formally arrested following their extradition to South Africa from Eswatini. Malusi and Sianda Dimande arrived at King Shaka International Airport in Durban a short while ago, and they will stand trial alongside 5 other co-accused. The pair was tracked after fleeing to Eswatini, where they were arrested for their alleged involvement in the murders. And a female TikToker accused of helping Mali's army has been seized and killed execution style by suspected jihadists. Miriam Sisi said to be in her 20s with over 100,000 TikTok followers, posted videos about life in her Tonka hometown in the northern Timbuktu region and often expressed support for the army. Her death has shocked the nation, which has been battling a jihadist insurgency since 2012. Those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 11 or as it happened.
EWN Traffic.
In the Calvin Alex area, roadwork still causing about a 20-minute delay. This is heading towards Midrand, N3 northbound between London Road and the Battery Interchange. Kempton Park, also slow-moving traffic due to roadworks on the R24 westbound between the R21 and Barbara Road. Travelling towards Bedfordview in the Edenvale area. Traffic is a bit sluggish. R24 westbound between Edenvale Road and the Gilulis Interchange. Look out for those faulty traffic lights in Alex at London and the N3, as well as in Four Ways at Vetkopen and Cedar. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
This Thursday, the Clement Manyathela Show will be live from the 2nd Annual National Construction Summit hosted by the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure and the Construction Industry Development Board. The summit is running from the 13th to the 14th of November, with the theme being Unlocking Infrastructure Delivery, Raising Construction Industry Performance. Discussions will include improving efficiency of infrastructure delivery and performance, progress and updates in efforts to combat the construction mafia, and how government plans to eliminate construction site disruptions and many other issues. So tune in this Thursday from 9 a.m. until midday to find out about the discussions as they happen. The Clement Manyathela Show live from the 2nd Annual National Construction Summit hosted by the Department of Public Works, turning South Africa into your construction site.
This is Cindy on a 4-hour road trip with the girls.
Did you know in the 1970s this landmark...
And this is Cindy when she shares her 200 gig for 299 Rand on her MiFi router.
Guys, Dodo, you're the DJ.
Extra your summer with a 200 gig SIM-only data deal for only 299 Rand per month and stream anywhere with 2 months free YouTube Premium plus 5 gigs free YouTube data. Sign up or upgrade online and in-store. T's and C's apply. Further together, Vodacom.
When it comes to protecting your workforce, trust the workwear brand that has been protecting workers for over 150 years, Sweetall. Sweetall has overalls and uniform solutions for every industry, so your team is safe, comfortable, and ready to tackle any challenge. Visit our new Boksburg showroom, shop A1 Atlas Road, Westwood, Boksburg, or go to sweetall.com today. Sweetall, we never let you down. Superior protective workwear since 1871.
For the first time on African soil, business leaders from across the globe will gather for the B20 Summit in Sandton from 18th to 20th November. On the agenda is inclusive growth and prosperity through global cooperation. Tomorrow, the Clement Manyathela Show will be in conversation with Nedbank to discuss all the insights, expectations, and predictions ahead of the summit. So tune in to 702 in conversation with Nedbank, proud sponsors of the B20 Summit. Nedbank is a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
702. Let's walk the talk.
23 minutes before 11 o'clock, we're having a conversation with Tembani Bukula, who is the chairperson of NESA. We've spoken about the issues of NESA's core mandate so far, because they are here they regulate the electricity, piped gas and petroleum pipelines industries, and often we don't talk a lot about these sectors because they're often overshadowed by electricity issues. We've talked about the issue of electricity pricing, but also the issue of that 54 billion rand error in the calculations of Eskom's revenue requirements. And Mr. Bukula explained that, in fact, had the calculations been done right and the processes, what you're going to pay for as this error is being sorted out is what you would have paid for had the calculations been done right. I've got some of your questions coming through, though, on 011-883-0702. The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702. Let me start with a question from Debbie, who says, "Hi, Clement, please can you ask Mr. Bukula about the 4 additional compulsory charges that Eskom sneakily introduced in April, namely service and admin charge, generation capacity charge, ancillary service charge, and network demand charge. To my knowledge, this was done with no prior notification or consultation and significantly increased the cost of electricity in addition to the inflation charge." That's a question from Debbie.
Let's start with the cost that she has listed. These were bundled costs, and there was a consultation on the unbundling of those costs. And that consultation is still going to continue, because once these costs were unbundled, there were other consequences that were identified both by Eskom and NESA that need to be corrected. But there was consultation on the costs, and there's, NESA does not have an option of making a decision without affording affected parties an opportunity to present their facts, views, and evidence. It is part of the process. So there was consultation. What we may have to improve is find ways of ensuring that people do see what is consulted on.
Okay, here's a WhatsApp voice note. That's also come on 072-702-1702.
Hi, Clement and the team. My question to your guest is, before you consider increasing the price of electricity for Eskom, do you consider the fact that Eskom is a state-owned entity which sometimes receive bailout from the state? And that bailout is the money that was generated from the same people who are paying for the same electricity. David.
That's a fair question, no? Because we're already...
it's true. It's a fair question. And in fact, one of the court cases that Eskom won against NESA was when NESA took the 60 billion rand that Eskom was given by government as its equity injection and used it as revenue. And in accounting terms and in all the laws, that you can't do that. So NESA considers that Eskom is a state-owned entity. In fact, in the returns that NESA would give Eskom, they don't give them the same returns that they give to the independent power producers. They get reduced returns. If you look at the years that we have looked at, Eskom, if it was just a private company and you're using the same metrics as the rest of the companies that generate electricity, would have been entitled to a return of around 14-15%. And the return that they got was 4% in the first year, 5 and 6 in the following years. So NESA considers that, and unfortunately, we have got to a stage where the cost of producing electricity has been higher, whether it is also due to the over expenditure in the 2 power stations that were built, or corruption or the others, that is something that is there, but we do consider that. And in areas where we feel that the costs are exorbitant or not aligned with the benchmarks that are supposed to be there, we do not give Eskom that, which is why we could go from a 36% increase application by Eskom and go down to 12%. It are those considerations. I also have to add that Eskom, before they apply to NESA, they go to their shareholder and get permission from their shareholder to apply for these increases. And the work that we do of reducing increases from 36% to about 12% is considering all of the things that...
So Eskom, when you say they go to their shareholder, like, in other words, they go to government.
Yes.
And government says, cool, kudos, go ask South Africans to pay like more on electricity, that 28%. But as NESA, following your considerations, you can reduce that.
Yes.
Okay, Gus, you're calling us from Johannesburg. What are your thoughts or question? Good morning. Hello, Gus.
Yes, Clement.
Sure, go ahead.
I just caught the tail end of your discussion, and I just thought I had to phone in. I started a small food manufacturing business a couple of years ago in cold chain food manufacturing. As it currently stands, I employ about 65 people. Our electricity charge is 7 times our rental on a monthly basis. It's become totally uneconomical to actually keep the business going. And my question is that you've got NERSA discussing increases here when the whole paradigm is incorrect. Electricity is through the roof. I don't understand how businesses can keep going. And instead of asking for increases, we should be looking at serious reductions. It's impossible to keep a business going. I've lost my enthusiasm for it. And quite frankly, what am I going to do with the 60 or 65 people that I employ?
Yeah. And I mean, this is a frustration from a lot of businesses, from a lot of South Africans as well. I'm sure this is what you hear a lot during public consultations.
Yes, that is true. We hear this, and we hear the pain that companies are going through, and we sympathize with that. And I think that the introduction of the market to try and reduce the cost of electricity is one of the initiatives that the state or the government is taking. But from the regulator, we also look at ways in which these costs can be reduced. I don't know how big, but I think 65 is also not a. I mean, it really doesn't matter how big but the fact of the matter is the price of electricity, yes, has increased, and maybe the introduction of the market is what is going to assist in reducing the price of electricity.
Yeah. Tabo on Twitter is asking that, Clement, we've been celebrating Eskom's performance recently. If Eskom is doing so well, why are we not seeing the price of electricity also go down?
I'm not sure if those two, there's a linear relationship between those two. But having said that, I've indicated to you that we will have the regulatory clearing account, which will then enable us to look at areas where Eskom has not performed according to what we had given him the money for, and therefore give back to the consumers. But generally, when you are running a business, you run it such that you must have retained earnings so that you can continue your operations. I don't think Eskom is a company. It's not a non-profit organization, so it is structured to make profits. But yes, our function is to ensure that they don't make excessive profits.
At the cost of us as consumers. The High Court in Pretoria recently found that NESA's cost studies and consultation processes were inadequate. What was NESA's prior position about making those cost studies public? Because you spoke about transparency earlier and why that is important. And I'm trying to understand why if indeed, as NESA, you believe that the cost studies upon which municipal tariff applications are based are confidential and not for consumers, and why, if you believe in transparency?
NESA did not. Okay, let's start with the cost of supply studies. Are studies that are done by municipalities, and it is by law that before they apply for any tariff increases, they must have done a cost of supply study. So these cost of supply studies are studies that are done by municipalities, and municipalities have their own consultation processes that they undertake when they do these cost of supply studies. And in some cases, they had indicated that their cost of supply study is confidential. In other cases, they would not indicate that. Now, the court case in the Pretoria court case was indicating that when we do the tariff increases next year, we must enable the consumers in that part of the consultations to also have a view at your cost of supply studies that are done by municipalities, not just the tariffs that municipalities send to NESA for their application for their tariffs. So going forward, we will publish both the cost of supply studies from the municipalities as well as the tariff applications by the municipalities.
Yeah.
But I must stress and add that this process of the consultation around the cost of supply studies is also required to be done by the municipalities, and most of them have done this.
Do they submit these cost studies on time, the municipalities?
I think that has always been the issue in the 20 years of NESA regulation. That sort of submission was not 100%, but I have to say to you that last year, it was the first year in the 20 years that all 177 municipalities that are regulated by NESA submitted their cost of supply studies.
Okay. It's 12 minutes now before 11 o'clock. Ntando, I see you. I'll start with your call after the break.
The Midday Report.
Weekdays,
12 to 1.
Take us through how you managed to work this out, how much the level of compliance there has been to your recommendations.
It's important for me to remind the listeners that the hearing or the investigation itself canvassed 4 main critical areas, and these form part of the investigative framework, which also then informs the conclusions, findings, as well as the recommendations.
Brilliant, truly.
The Midday Report
with Mandy Wiener.
12 to 1 on 702.
702.
Who said the dirtiest roads aren't the best roads? Peugeot South Africa presents Most Dirt Wins, the ultimate off-road challenge featuring the toughest nails, Peugeot Land Track Bakkie. 2 teams, 1 goal to cover the most kilometers on South Africa's wildest dirt roads. Catch all the action on Prime Media Plus and visit peugeot.co.za for new episodes every Monday and see the Land Track prove it's pretty tough.
Make waves with Hollywood Bets in the Splash the Cash tournament for your shot at a share of 1 million rand. Top the weekly leaderboard in this thrilling competition for your chance at a mad cash dash. Simply bet 2 rand or more on Playtech slots or 100 rand or more on Playtech live casino games to enter. Get locked, loaded and ready to play. It's more fun to spin with us. Bet now. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0170.
Day 20, awaiting proof of payment. Day 30, still waiting. Day 40, funds finally cleared. In business, credit with 55 interest-free days keeps you moving. We get it. Get an Absa Business Credit Card. Use over 50% of your credit and initiation fees will be on us. Offer ends 31 December 2025. Apply at absa.co.za/business. Absa is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply. Absa, your story matters.
702.
The Clement Manyathela Show.
Let's walk the talk.
9 minutes before 11 o'clock. Ntando, you're calling us from the city of Johannesburg. Good morning.
Morning, Sir Clement Manyathela.
Sure, go ahead.
The question is this. One, how does NERSA, as correctly said, the chairman said, that there is a study, a cost of sales study. when you have a city like City of Johannesburg, we have street lights on throughout the day. So it might not be their competency, but surely in terms of how that feeds into the overall costs that a city or like City Power would request, surely such considerations should be taken into account. That's number one. Number two, as the price determination on a year-on-year basis, as far as I remember, Eskom has received so many bailouts, and on top of that, I remember the president in Saudi Arabia receiving a huge chunk of money in terms of sorting out the debt of Eskom. And by the way, Eskom was never created to be a profit-making entity from its inception. It has been bankrupt many times, even when it was started. But my point, what I want to push is, has NERSA considered all the bailouts that have been received thus far to say, well, Eskom, by now you should be in a better position not to be asking for such high year-on-year increases? Thanks.
Dando, in the city of Johannesburg, thank you so much for your call. Mr. Bukula?
Thank you. I want to start with the part around the street lights and that they're part of the determination. I think when we look at the cost of supply studies, we also do the trending of the costs. We don't just take the cost of supply studies of the municipalities and say that just because you said your increases. In fact, let me add that most of the cost of supply studies have indicated that municipalities wanted the increases in the range of 30 to 40%. We have not allowed them that. We have allowed them the increases that we think are appropriate. So we do consider that. To come to the second one around Eskom being yes, Eskom was formed as a company of the government, but for it to continue doing what it has to do, it has to make certain profits. And yes, it is not one that's going to make, it gives dividends to the government. But the one I wanted to come back to around, does NERSA consider that Eskom gets given cash injections by government? Yes, NERSA considers that Eskom gets cash injections from government. And in the way that we consider it, we also have to accept that Eskom has built a couple of power stations that went over the budget that was initially there for them, and therefore the costs went in a direction that was not initially anticipated. And in the way that we look at Eskom's pricing with this modern equivalent asset value, yes, we do limit the cost of those power stations that have been overspent to what the modern equivalent should be. So as much as we do what we have to do, I have to keep stressing that we do it within the confines of the legislation that says that we must do this. What is true, though, is that we have got now to a stage where using the modern equivalent asset value for Eskom to recover the costs and for Eskom to go through its bill program has probably expired. We now have to revise, but we're not the ones revising the electricity pricing policy. Yes, we have given inputs and whatever influence we have on the state looking at that. And yes, the government is revising the electricity pricing policy. So I doubt that by the next determination we would be using the same electricity pricing policy, which is a consideration of the fact that you have now gone over the hill that you needed to go through. Now you need to normalize things. So the point that the gentleman is making is correct, but yes, it is under consideration.
Good morning, Clement. NERSA must stop taking us for a ride. Before they can approve any tariff increases, they must force Eskom to go and disconnect all these illegal connections that are hidden in plain sight all over the townships and the plots. That's where the biggest hemorrhage is happening. But no, instead of telling Eskom to go do its job so that, we cut all these losses, they're very quick to punish us, you and I, the loyal customers. And you know what? We're all going to have to resort to, illegal connections and other sources of electricity because of this kind of sloppiness.
So please don't resort to that. So Here's something you said that I think also has been missed is before Eskom before they even come to you for an application, whether they want a 30% increase or a 15% increase, they go to the shareholder, right?
Yes, that's
They
correct.
go to government and they say, government, we want South Africans to actually pay 30% increase in electricity. And government as the shareholder says, oh, we're good with that. And then they come to you as NESA, they make the application. And often, once you've made your own determinations and public consultations, if they're asking for 30%, sometimes you give them 25 or 10 based following your consideration. That's why they end up taking you to court.
Yes, that's correct.
But you are now seen as the bad guy most of the time. Like this listener who says, yeah, but you are punishing us, because at the end of the day, it's NESA that gives the final determination of this is how much the price of electricity is going to be. But actually, government has given that the green light. Eskom often most are not, ask for a higher tariff increase, and you normally actually take them down.
That's correct. I suppose that is one of the pleasures of working for a regulator, that from Eskom's side, you are a bad person because you didn't give them what they want. And from the consumers, you are also a bad person because you've given something. So I think it's part of the job. But I think when we do it diligently with the instruments that we have within the confines of the legislation that has enacted us.
Yeah. Just lastly, what measures and steps have you put in place to ensure that that error that we spoke about earlier does not happen again?
We have relooked at our. I also have to say that maybe part of I'm not making a confession on behalf of the regulator. Part of how the error happened was also the complacency around the regulator having done 6 of these determinations and never made a clerical error. And what we have done now is we have introduced further steps that would ensure that once corrections have been made in a meeting, because these were public meetings with these corrections, then there's a further vetting process before it moves to the next committee. And we also are going to improve on our document control and version control processes, because if it was still in the olden days where these things were printed, chances are it would never have happened because we would have had to print another one.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, we are looking at everything and anything that can be done to ensure that we don't have this error again.
All right. Thembani Bukula, NESA Chairperson, thank you for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you, sir.
It's a minute before 11.
Flight Centre's big red sale is back, 21 October to 14 November. Save up to 50% on tours, 35% on cruises, and massive deals on Thailand, Mauritius, and the Maldives. Even local flights from 1,900 Rand return. Now that's a win. Plus, 2 kids stay and eat free on selected breaks. The world's waiting. The deals are calling. So, get to your nearest Flight Centre store today. T's and C's apply. Flight Centre, your centre for travel.
Access to the internet is vital for any country to grow. That's why the recent 6.75 billion Rand digital infrastructure deal that Standard Bank Corporate and Investment Banking facilitated between Telkom and an Actors-led consortium is so transformational for South Africa. It unlocks growth and provides internet access to underserved communities who will now have access to the internet for the very first time. Search CIB Stories of Impact to watch the full story.
Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Take the ultimate spin with 10Bet and me, Andy Lengube, to win a luxury BMW X3. Join 10bet.co.za. Play selected games. Every 10 rands you play earns you points. Hit the top of the leaderboard and the prize could be yours. T's and C's apply. 10Bet is a licensed betting operator and supports responsible gambling. No persons under the age of 18 shall be permitted to bet. Betting can be addictive. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076-675-0710. License number 921096661.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. The attempted murder case of alleged crime boss Vusmuzi Clement Manyathela has been transferred to the High Court for trial. Manyathela appeared in the Alexandra Magistrates Court for the centralization of his cases this morning. He faces charges of organizing a hit on his former girlfriend Tebogo Tobejane. He's also been charged for 2 other botched hits on businessman Jose Banyoni and DJ Vetis, whose real name is Sienki Mukunubing. Khomotso Modise has more.
It was a brief court appearance for Vusmuzi Clement Manyathela, who stood in the dock with his 4 co-accused, including his wife Tsakane. Prosecutors told the court that Manyathela's case is ready to be transferred to the High Court for trial. NPA spokesperson Pindim Jonondwane.
We did receive the approval for the centralization of the Pretoria dockets, which was that of Sibanyoni and others, conspiracy to commit murder, as well as charges of attempted murder, unlawful possession of firearms and ammunition.
Another alleged crime boss who's been subject of the Madlanga Commission is Katiso KT Molefe. He also appeared immediately after Manyathela in the Magistrates Court this morning, but prosecutors say his case is not ready to be transferred to the High Court. He'll return to the Alexandra Magistrates Court next month. Khomotso Modise, Eyewitness News in Alexandra.
In another development, 2 brothers linked to the murders of rapper Kenan aka Forbes and celebrity chef Tibelo Mutswane will be formally arrested following their extradition to South Africa from Eswatini. Malusi and Sianda Ndimande arrived at King Shaka International Airport in Durban this morning, and they will stand trial alongside 5 co-accused. The pair was tracked after fleeing to Eswatini, where they were arrested last year for their alleged involvement in the crime. They had been attending their case in the Manzini Magistrates Court but abandoned their extradition appeal earlier this week. Forbes and Mutswane were shot dead outside a Durban restaurant in 2023. Nhlanhla Mabaso has more from Durban.
Siyabonga and Malusi Ndimande arrived under heavy security guard with members of the police's special task force escorting them. Interpol officers handed them over to the investigating officers who charged them. Police spokesperson Adlenda Mate.
They'll be taken to Durban Central, where they will be processed, fingerprints taken, everything. And then they will then proceed to court, where now they will appear before a magistrate.
KZN Police Head Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi is expected to attend the proceedings.
So we are hoping also the Provincial Commissioner of KZN, Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, will also be in court in support of this operation. I think it's a moment we have all been waiting for. As the SAPS.
The suspects will also be charged for other murder cases, including the alleged murder of a taxi boss. Nhlanhla Mabaso, Eyewitness News, Durban.
Rights organization Women for Change is calling on women and members of the LGBTQA+ community to stand in solidarity with those who have died because of gender-based violence and femicide. It's further calling on South Africans to wear black on the 21st of this month and to physically lie down at midday on the day for at least 15 minutes. The demonstration is set to take place a day before the G20 summit. The women's rights organization says the sight of seeing multiple people laying down will demonstrate the harsh reality that women face. Operations and activism coordinator at the organization, Marilise, says they are advocating for GBV and femicide to be declared a national disaster.
So we've decided to have this on the day before the G20 because we know that there's going to be a lot of international delegates here, a lot of South African international media is going to be in the country, just so that we can get the message of the amount of women that are dying by femicide in South Africa outside of the country.
And a female TikToker accused of helping Mali's army has been seized and killed execution style by suspected jihadists. Miriam C says that is said to be in her 20s with her over 100,000 TikTok followers, posted videos about life in her Tonka hometown in the northern Timbuktu region and often expressed support for the army. Her death has shocked the nation, which has been battling a jihadist insurgency since 2012. State television says she had simply wanted to promote her community and support the army through her TikTok posts. Mali is grappling with a fuel blockade imposed on the capital by jihadist groups that has severely disrupted daily life, with the African Union expressing deep concern. Gold is trading at $4,143.85 an ounce. The rand is at 17.15 to the dollar, 22.59 to the pound, 19.89 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $63.94 a barrel.
Wet, slippery roads in rainy Gauteng, so please allow for extra traveling time, maintain a safe following distance, and keep your headlights on. While in Kelvin at this stage, roadwork still causing delays heading towards Midrand, N3 northbound between London Road and the Batlu interchange. 4 ways, traffic lights still not working at Witkoppen and Cedar.
A partly cloudy day in store for Gauteng with showers in the afternoon. The temperatures will peak at highs between 22 and 24 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour: the attempted murder case of alleged crime boss Vusmuzi Manyathela has been transferred to the High Court for trial.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
Let's Walk the Talk, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app,
DSTV channel 856,
92.7 and 106 FM.
8 minutes after 11 o'clock. Dumelang, welcome to the third and final hour of the Clement Manyathela Show. Thanks for staying with us here on 702. It's time now for our World of Work feature.
702.
World of Work.
So we are discussing remote work on our World of Work feature this morning because it looks like it's been on the rise, particularly this year. I mean, the world of work we have seen, it keeps on evolving, doesn't it? And so do South Africans' expectations about where and how they want to work. Remember, during the pandemic, there was a boom in remote jobs. In fact, many companies pulled staff back into offices much later in what then became known as the Great Return. But there's new data from PNet's Job Market Trends report for October 2025 showing that remote opportunities are actually once again on the rise. So according to that data, South Africa's leading online recruitment platform, that PNet, remote vacancies have climbed by 0.5%. That's between March and September this year. That's 0.5 percentage points. And that's following a sharp 13% decline in 2023 and 2024. And yes, only about 3.6% of all advertised jobs are currently listed as remote or hybrid, but the trend is slowly shifting. You've got more employers now offering flexible work options across a wider range of roles, not just in IT, but also in admin, in business management, in finance as well. So it seems the idea of working from anywhere is making a quiet comeback. Is that something that you still prefer to this day? Because there are people who did it during COVID and they didn't want to come back to the office. There are people who were not in the office during COVID who were desperate to come back to the office. So do you work remotely? Can you please share your experiences with us? What's working for you as someone who works remotely? Give us a call or send us a WhatsApp voice note. You can do so by calling on 011-883-0702. or send a WhatsApp voice note on 072-702-1702. And if you're an employer, do you allow your employees to work remotely? Do you have more of a hybrid arrangements of sorts? And why have you set up things the way you have? Call us or send us a WhatsApp voice note to share your experiences or your input. Paul Byrne is the head of data insights at PNet, who's going to guide us through this conversation. Paul, how are you? Good morning.
I am very well, thank you, Clement. Good to be on your show again. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, let's look at the latest PNet Job Market Trends report. What do they tell us about remote job opportunities in South Africa right now?
Well, Your introduction, I think, was a really good summary of what's happening. We're seeing this uptick in the volume of remote opportunities available in South Africa, and albeit a very modest uptick, you gave the percentages just 0.5%, off the backdrop of what we'd seen over the previous 2 years, being 2023 and 2024, and what we recorded as a 13% decrease over that time. This sustained increase at this 0.5% is actually quite significant and really suggests that there's a renewed appetite for companies to really consider what remote or hybrid type work means. And I think it's becoming more and more important that companies start looking at their alternatives in terms of what they're going to do to attract the top talent. And specifically, you speak about sort of this new world of work, and I think the big thing here is that companies need to be thinking about that future talent. Where are we going to get this talent from? And more importantly, how are we going to attract them, to make sure that they want to come and work for us as an organization versus going to work for another organization.
But we saw a major drop in remote work during that 2023, 2024 period. What is driving now, because it is a small but still a significant comeback, in 2025 based on the data you've just told us about. What was the reason for, that sort of decline, and why do you think, and what do you think is actually driving this small but significant comeback?
Clement, if we look at what happened over COVID and immediately post-COVID, I think it was, it goes without saying, it was a shock to all of our systems in terms of how to navigate this new way of work through COVID. And I think what we've seen is that companies have sort of done the complete swing of saying, right, as you call it, that great return. Companies wanted people back in the office. And personally, I actually feel that as efficient as I am when I'm working at home, I'm a lot more effective when I'm with my work colleagues at the office. And a lot of companies were looking at that in the same way, to saying, in order to progress the organization, to make sure that we're all aligned in terms of culture and innovation, that really can, it's accelerated when people are together and sharing ideas, even be it around a water cooler. So I think what happened then in 2023 and 2024, companies were really making sure that they made the point of getting people back into the office. But as we start surging into what I call the new world of work, which actually, honestly, we're quite firmly entrenched in already, which is this drive towards AI and sort of the rapidly changing careers that we've spoken about before in this show, I think companies are starting to look at it slightly differently and say, right, okay, what do we need to do, once again, to just make sure that we're attracting the right kind of talent? What kind of benefit can we be offering people to consider us over someone else? And there's no doubt that hybrid or even remote work does work for some people, as you mentioned. So I think in terms of the hybrid type work, that's the best of both worlds, where you get the benefit of being in office, but also having that opportunity to be at home and get sort of, as I call it, that efficient work done. And I think that's what's driving it. Companies are just discovering what's actually going to work for them better.
Oh, my goodness. I don't know if I would survive just working from home. During COVID, we did do our shows from home. I did my show, I think, for a week or two from the comfort of my couch. And as cool and safe as that was, I still missed being in the studio, and being with everybody else. So here's a question, though, because I know that whenever we talk about remote work, we often think IT, we often think, accountants. But there are sectors or roles that are leading the way when it comes to remote work opportunities. What are those?
Yeah, very much so. And if I look at the sort of at the top level in terms of the job categories, we're seeing the increase happening in finance and business and management and admin, office and support roles. So again, very, as you correctly say, sort of a shift away from just being IT type jobs. And in the finance space, specifically, if I break it down into the types of jobs that have been advertised, more of the remote type opportunities are your accountants and your bookkeepers. In business and management, it's largely your managerial roles, interestingly, that are coming with these benefits. And then in admin, office and support, it's your admin clerks, it's your personal assistants and customer support, that where we see this growth. And I think going back to one of your previous questions around what is growing this change in attitude, and I said companies wanting to obviously attract the top talent and offering this as a benefit. But when you look at this grouping that I've just spoken about across finance, business and management, assistant, admin office, and support. What I think we're also starting to see come into the whole process here is that there's smaller companies are wanting to grow, but without the addition of rental overheads right now. And I think there is definitely a shift towards what I call more offshoring, where we've got foreign companies that are tapping into our local talent pool to have people, as us South Africans, stay in South Africa but deliver services for these overseas organizations. And that seems to be a big driver as well. And specifically, if you're looking at the types of roles that I've just spoken about, your accountants, your bookkeepers, your managerial roles, admin clerks, personal assistants, customer support, those are the type of jobs that I also think would be very popular in terms of these offshoring companies that are looking to tap into that talent. It's I think the first two options in terms of sort of looking at why companies do it, as in looking to provide the benefits, and also for the smaller companies wanting to sort of expand without the rental overheads. That's good for South Africa. The offshoring, as that third option I spoke about, is not so good, because that means that we're effectively losing talent to our to these international companies, and that just means that there's less talent available in South Africa to deliver what we need our talent to be able to deliver in terms of growing our economy locally.
Yeah. It's 17 minutes now after 11 o'clock. After the break, I'll go to your calls and WhatsApps as you share your own experiences around remote work, because it looks like, as I said earlier, it's making a quiet comeback.
At Isuzu, we know every delivery, every kilometer, and every load is building something bigger. This truck month, set your business up for success with special deals across the Isuzu N and F-Series ranges. Don't get left behind. Speak to your Isuzu truck specialist or call 08600 Isuzu and secure your truck month deal today. Isuzu, with you for the long run. T's and C's apply.
Here at Betway, we're finding every way possible to make sure you can win your next sports bet. With our new Bet Saver feature, you could get your stake back or more on bets with multiple losses. Stand to win, even when your bet misses. Bet Saver, exclusive to Betway. Terms and conditions apply. Betway is licensed and regulated by the Western Cape Gambling and Racing Board. No persons under the age of 18 are permitted to gamble. South African Responsible Gambling Program toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710. Winners know when to stop.
It all starts with advice from FNB Private. Because the perfect overseas trip starts with planning. Save and spend in multiple currencies with your FNB Global account and lock in exchange rates. Enjoy up to 40% off flights with eBucks Travel and order Forex on the FNB app delivered to you at no extra cost. Your adventure awaits. Unlock invaluable with FNB Private. Help changes everything. FNB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and credit provider. TC's own rules and limits apply.
In case you missed it, 702 was in conversation with Santam about Santam's partnership with the G20 taking place in Johannesburg.
We are participating in the disaster risk and reduction working group, and through that we are able to share some learning, good practices, and what we've got from our flagship program, like partnerships and risk and resilience. So we hope that the learnings that we are able to share with the G20 countries were able to be utilized, most importantly, to emphasize the role of partnerships between government and the private sector.
Santam is a proud sponsor of the G20 Summit. Santam, this is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer, and the controlling company for its group of companies.
702
World of Work.
20 minutes after 11 o'clock, we've been discussing remote jobs, which seem to be on the rise once again, according to this data from PNet's Job Market Trends Report for October 2025. And I've asked you to share your own experiences. Maybe you got into remote work this year. What's driven that decision for you? Let's listen to some of the WhatsApps that have come on 072 702 and 702.
Good morning, Clement and team. Yeah, Clement. I wish we could go back to the days where we just worked home full time. You're going to the office, it's the petrol, it's being stuck in traffic, it's extra cost for arrangement for the kids. I wish we could go back to those days. especially when you don't work with clients. Because, wow, in this day and age, taking your laptop to the office is so ridiculous when you can do the same work comfortably at home.
Hi, Clement. On the topic of working from home, so I just recently had to go back to work 3 times a week. It's so draining, I must tell you. Since 2020, I've been working from home up until the 1st of October, and it has been a breeze. I mean, I sort of had a routine where 8 o'clock I'm at work on my desk and up until 5 o'clock, and it worked best. But now I have to go back to the office. Spend an hour, 2 hours on the road. It's just a waste of time. I believe that working from home is much better, way much better, and you get to do a whole lot more than being at the office. And there's so much chit chat at the office that you don't get your work done. Thanks.
Hi, 702, Kasamba here from Randburg. So we've had a company, we started our company about 3 years ago. We've been fully remote since we started. When the talent pool was smaller and we had people who knew exactly what they were doing, remote work was not a problem. And I advocate for that. We are still fully remote. However, with younger talent coming in and needing to learn how the company operates, the special skills that are required, we are finding that with more junior staff who haven't worked corporate long and need more mentorship, that they need to come into the office. So we're sitting in a hybrid situation at the moment.
Hi, Clement. Husna here from Johannesburg. I work remotely, and I can definitely say there are pros and cons to it. Pros are that I don't do the Joburg traffic, and when it's a really rainy day, all I do is just put on my gown and work on my laptop. The cons of it is that you really miss that interpersonal connection between you and your clients, and you are always needed on call 24/7, or rather within the working hours, which is something that, still trying to manage, obviously coming from corporate. But yes, that's remote work for you.
Oh, yeah. See, it works for other people. It simply doesn't for others. Sipo, you calling us from the Val. Good morning.
Yes, hi, how are you, Clement?
Sure, man.
I am for remote work or hybrid, 100%. That thing is working. People don't want to conform to the modern times, to the ever-changing times where the technology comes in. We are in IA times. We should confirm. Management have got this thing that is saying, I want to see my staff members face to face so that they can fulfill their egos. No, listen. When you wake up in the morning, you are right on top of your laptop. You are working. There's no stress of being on the road, facing the traffic, risking your life, and now you arrive at home, when the coffee has spilled on you, you're angry about the driver was cutting on you, the traffic, no. Hybrid work works, and it eliminates a lot of things. It's good for companies because you save on parking area, you save on the office working. Office space and etc. The only thing is that the management must conform to changing times, modern times, technology. So with IA, working from home is excellent.
Don't you miss human interaction, Sipo?
That's the problem. We want to see faces. We want to see warm bodies. That is the problem. Accept that. What is the problem? It's the same thing I can do in the office.
Yeah.
It's the same thing I can do at home.
But Ed, do you have people? Do you have kids? Do you have someone at home you live with? Like, do you go to gym? Or are you constantly Monday to Friday? It's just you and the laptop, and you work from home, and then when you finish. You just stay in the house. Because we human beings, need human interaction. I'm trying to find in what ways do you get that?
And that can be found over the weekend. and that can be sorted out, Clement.
Okay.
The most important thing, it makes the life of a human being easier. You end up managing your life better. You plan properly. You schedule things. Like example, if you have to listen to a person who has to fetch his kids at who's doing grade 1 or grade R at 1:30 or 2 o'clock at school. That person. Right now, a person who's working remotely can do that easily. But a person who has to sign off at 4:30, 5 o'clock, that person can't do that easy.
Yeah, it makes it tricky. Yeah, Sipho Indaval, thank you for sharing your experience with us. Paul, there's someone asking for advice here who is considering, getting a job where the work will be remote. What advice do you have for people who are considering this?
Clement, I think there have been some really interesting messages that come through, and it shows that there are very definitely two schools of thought. The ones that stand out for me really covered the things about mentorship and guidance, visibility, interpersonal connection. And I think it's so very important and sort of part and parcel of who we are, about whom we are as human beings. We need that social interaction, and we need it in the office space as much as we need it out of the office. And I think the best way that I describe it is that when we're working remotely, and even if we get onto sort of a video call and have got meetings with our colleagues or with our customers, I feel that kind of meeting is very transactional. It is, we are in this call for a particular meeting and we need to get something done. Whereas when you're in the office and you're actually in person, I believe that the opportunity is there for some relationship building. And it goes back to what I was saying about sort of that efficiency at home versus the effectiveness at the office. And I think we're so much more effective at the office when we can collaborate. And even if we are sort of, as one caller described it, chit-chatting, sometimes, and actually in a lot of cases, it's about work and it's about solutionizing. It's about finding the answer to a particular problem. So I think that being in office also then speaks to the importance of growing the culture. And I think it was your third caller who was speaking specifically about the difficulty that they've got right now is their company grows and they have got junior staff members or new staff members coming into the organization. Those people don't have the opportunity, they don't have the benefit of actually understanding what the culture of the organization was like before COVID. So bringing people back into the office allows the management team to really drive that culture, make sure that everyone's aligned on purpose, aligned on vision, and again, we're effective. We're a lot more effective. Yeah. And it enables that opportunity for mentorship and guidance. And I think, again, when people are in person, that mentorship and guidance is that much more important. And I do worry about youngsters that might, people coming into jobs for the first time that haven't had the opportunity of understanding the importance of that mentorship. It will be a loss to them in the greater run of things.
Good afternoon, Clement. I think a remote is another way of simplifying things in today's modern. I work in a company where we do inspection for the goods that are going out of Africa, whereby a client will be assigned for an app which is on site, and then we use the video to inspect where he will be shooting the pictures, and then I will be checking if those things are marked, they're legible, or the quality of the product is the one that the client is required. Thank you.
Hi, Clement. I can hear people talking about all the good things about working from home. It's not everybody who's disciplined when it comes to working from home. Believe you me, I have relatives that were working from home. All I see is people drinking, entertaining visitors while the laptop is on.
Clement, office toxicity is like one of the biggest problems why people don't want to work. And in this woke world that is happening right about now, toxic bosses, toxic office colleagues, managerial positions, fighting to appease managers, that whole entire toxicity. And then secondly, it's office relationships that might get you in trouble, whether you are in one or you are being cheated on. Office husbands, office wives office husband and wife. No. Being remote is really good for your soul. It's good for your mental health. It's good for your. I'm alluding this to also being independent and being an entrepreneur. There is some solace and some peace within that. So I think if you are still having a 9 to 5, working at home has those ingredients, has those beautiful elements of peace, and something that is good for the soul, although we are all in this rat race of the capitalist system. So yeah, I'm for being at home.
Yeah, I hear you guys. I hear you, and I understand that some of you are working in really unhealthy, toxic environments. But hey, there are other people who still enjoy being in the company of their colleagues, and they go to work every day, Monday to Friday, with a smile on their face. So different schools of thoughts. Paul Byrne, Head of Data Insights at PNet. Thanks for making time for us. It's 11:31. Time for the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. Mbali Dlamini, good morning.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. National Director of Public Prosecutions, Shamile Batoyi, has started giving testimony in Parliament this morning. Batoyi is appearing before Parliament's ad hoc committee, which is investigating allegations of criminality in the criminal justice system. She has started by taking the committee through work being done in order to rebuild the NPA. At the same time, the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry has heard that close to 300 Metro officers in Ekurhuleni had criminal records in 2022, while 100 were awaiting trial. This has been revealed by retired EMPD Deputy Commissioner Rivo Spies, who is currently testifying before that commission. Spies says during a criminal record checking process, they found that 275 EMPD officers were convicted of criminal offences. And the attempted murder case of alleged crime boss Vusimuzi Matlala has been transferred to the High Court for trial. Matlala appeared in the Alexandra Magistrates Court today for the centralisation of his cases. He is accused of organising a hit on his former girlfriend, Tebogo Tobejane. Those are the headlines, this EWN and more at midday or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Heading towards Midrand, we still have those roadworks in the Calvin Alex area slowing down traffic. This is between Marlborough Drive and the Butler Interchange. Otherwise, the rest of 702 land looking pretty good. No serious accidents have been reported on our highways despite the rain and the slippery conditions on our roads. I suggest you allow for extra traveling time this morning, maintain a safe following distance and keep your headlights on. Also look out for those faulty traffic lights in 4 ways at Witkoppen and Cedar. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072 702 1702.
There's more EWN on air, online and on the EWN app.
And the award for the spiciest stunt performed in a bowl goes to Tom Yum Cruise.
Thank you everyone. Wow, what an honor. I'd like to thank the chilies, the lemongrass, and of course, Simply Asia for believing in my flavor.
It's the summer of stars at Simply Asia. Stand a chance to win a Toyota Starlet when you spend 200 Rand or more on our famous flavors. Order now. Simply Asia, connecting the Thaiway.
Access to the internet is vital for any country to grow. That's why the recent 6.75 billion rand digital infrastructure deal that Standard Bank Corporate and Investment Banking facilitated between Telkom and an Actis-led consortium is so transformational for South Africa. It unlocks growth and provides internet access to underserved communities who will now have access to the internet for the very first time. Search CIB Stories of Impact to watch the full story.
Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
KwaZulu-Natal has it all, believe it. The Zulu Kingdom is home to unforgettable adventures and experiences that will stay with you forever. Why not invite Abundase and whale watch along our wild coast, or turtle track in the heart of St. Lucia? Take a tour of our historic battlefields. Then rise above the beautiful Midlands meander in a hot air balloon trip made for two. Unforgettable happens here. Zwagala.
702.
Health and wellness.
11:35. Time for our health and wellness feature. And today, I want us to have a conversation about the role and effectiveness of herbal and traditional medicine in healthcare. Do you use herbal or traditional remedies in your household? And what do you use those for? Maybe it's mhlonyani, because some people use it for colds, or maybe you use rooibos tea, for instance, for digestion, or maybe alu for the skin. What do you swear by? Like, what are those home remedies, the traditional remedies, herbal remedies that you still use in your household? Give us a call on 011-883-0702 or send a WhatsApp voice note. For generations, and for many, many years, South Africans have turned to herbal and traditional medicine for healing, through whether you're doing that because you want to heal from some coughs, maybe you want to soothe some coughs, or you've got stomach aches, or maybe you want to manage a more serious health condition. I mean, even with modern clinics and pharmacies all around, you see traditional remedies remain that trusted part of many households. Some people say that they work better, others use them alongside modern treatments, and for many people they are a reflection of our culture, of our heritage and faith, and they stick by them for many, many, many years. So how effective and relevant are these remedies today, and can they really supplement modern healthcare safely and successfully? And how can the two worlds of medicine, actually, the traditional and scientific, work more closely together to serve communities better? Godfrey Madlalate is a herbalist who is joining us on the line. He's going to guide us through this conversation, but I'd like to hear from you as well. I know there are many families, many households who still use herbal and traditional remedies, and they've worked. I mean, we were raised by those remedies, and look at where we are now. And some of us have taken that over even into our own households. Godfrey, thank you so much for making time for us. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. Good morning to your listeners and all the gogos and the mkulus in the SADC region as well.
So there are many people in this country who still tend to your traditional or herbal remedies. Why do you think these forms of medicines remain so important today? Because in some way, that's become sort of consistent in many households.
I think all over the world, Clement, we do have indigenous traditional communities. And, despite modernization and westernization, I would really like to categorically say that our first point of call in terms of medication as a traditional and indigenous community should best in traditional medicines. Also, we have seen over years, and I'm sure the clinicians and all the doctors globally have documented that some people just don't respond to Western medicine and drugs. Yeah.
I see. So how would you describe then, because there are some people who often, say, yeah, sure, I'll take the modern medicine, but I need to supplement it with some herbal or traditional remedies. How would you describe that relationship between traditional medicine and modern healthcare in South Africa right now? And are we finding ways for these to complement each other? Because there are doctors who will also sometimes tell you that, hey, try this as well when you get home, this herbal remedy, this traditional remedy, on top of what they've given you as, for lack of a better phrase, the modern medicine, so to speak.
Yes, I think what I've realized in during my healing career, and I'm sure all the traditional healers and herbalists will agree, is that in the modern times we live in, it is inevitable to have a mix of both, formal Western drugs and medications. Being used successfully alongside traditional medicines. Remember, in the South African health context, Western doctors are supposed to refer people to us when necessary, and vice versa. We do refer some of our patients as well to hospitals and clinics and general practitioners. So for me, the key has been that if you have a patient who's both on Western medication as well as traditional medication, the key is to create synergies between the two and that involves considerations around the time as to what time do you administer the tablets versus what time do you administer the traditional remedies. Traditional remedies can be quite strong, so some of them will also have a tendency of flushing out the tablets from within your system. So if you have someone who's on a chronic condition, it could be diabetes, it could be high blood pressure, it could be something else. If they take traditional remedies at the wrong time, it will definitely flush out the tablets, and it could be cough mixtures and other things as well.
I see. So someone is asking on the WhatsApp line that when we talk about herbal remedies or traditional medicine, what exactly do we mean when we talk about that?
Traditional medicines are wide and vast. You will find that at least 90% of traditional medicines are derived from herbs and shrubs and barks of trees and plants. We do obviously, with experience, mix them a bit with other supplementary medicines, which might be chemicals at best. I'm talking about the kind of chemicals you find in the periodic table if there are complications. So people like talking about the word concoction. You will find that each healer has their own unique concoctions, which are mixed differently from one healer to the next. What I haven't mentioned to you and about the whole issue of using herbs and traditional medicines in general is that it's not as easy as it seems, which is why it has been difficult in certain cases, especially with abangoma, your classic traditional healers, kunamagedla, kunabangoma, and all other kinds of healers. It's difficult to use traditional medicines in a space where a specific ancestral context hasn't been defined. In other words, the efficacy of traditional medicine has to achieve synergies that are associated with your own unique ancestors and allergies that are unique to your own ancestry. So a few years ago, I wrote a paper which was presented to the department, our Department of Health, to say that each and every traditional herb or piece and item of traditional medicine has got a sacred coded signature, ancestral signature, which is purely defined and controlled by an individual's ancestors. So, there are certain herbs that are not compatible with that ancestry, and if you were to administer those herbs to me, I will react in a very adverse way. In Western terms, they will say I have an allergy or an intolerance of a certain herb. So the beauty of traditional medicine and traditional herbs is that it is a network of family secrets that is being brought together into the same arena and the same space. And that is the beauty. This is why we encourage broader society to consult with traditional healers before they can use traditional medicines, because traditional medicines can be dangerous if one tends to self-medicate. They are not good for self-medication. They are good to use once one has consulted a healer and this healer has thrown bone or done an ancestral, a prophetic divination to say, will this be effective on Mr. Clement Manyathela or not? So we normally get an answer.
Yeah.
So we don't just prescribe. It's unlike doctors when they have a manual and they say somebody who's presenting symptoms of a flu can be given ABC. It doesn't work like that. It's actually slightly more complicated.
Okay, so because there are many, there are some of us who sort of will still use some herbal or traditional remedies, but we've not done the necessary consultations. We're working on the information that's been provided by our own elders or our parents. Could it be that then they probably, or their elders, have consulted about these, and that's why that's become quite known within the family structures that these are the kinds of medicines that we take, but the consultations have been done by those that came before us, because we take these now, Because we've seen them work, but we have not done any consultations.
Yes, that happens a lot. I think that context draws on knowledge that has been shared throughout the generations. I heard you earlier on as I was logging in. You were talking about umhlonyane, that umhlonyane is a herb that deals well with flu and fever. And we also discovered some magic during COVID-19 spell that the pandemic rather, that umhlonyane stabilized a lot of people during the COVID-19 pandemic. So that is based on generic knowledge of traditional, indigenous traditional systems. But then on the other hand, it doesn't necessarily mean that umhlonyane will deal with each and every case of flu. Some people might react very adversely to umhlonyane and draw an allergy from it. I'm just citing that example, yes.
Got it. I've got some messages coming through on the WhatsApp line, some calls as well. We'll get to them after the break. It's 13 minutes now before 12.
Bongani Bingwa, 702 Breakfast.
Weekday mornings, 6 to 9.
The Commission for Gender Equality calling on Parliament to review a 70-year-old law on witchcraft. There are people who, in engaging in practices of witchcraft, target children for rape and sexual abuse as a way to empower themselves. What kind of madness is that? What ancestors, what power will you summon that would demand that of you? I'm emotional about this.
Bongani Bingwa, 6 to 9.
On 702.
Corporates That Care promotes and encourages corporate leaders and all citizens to walk the talk for a better South Africa. Catch Corporates That Care this Wednesday at 10 to 9, featuring exclusive books. Their CEO, Gretchen Kirk, will be in conversation with Bongani Bingwa. Join us every Wednesday as we highlight the efforts of companies and brands dedicated to building our country. Corporates That Care is a Prime Media Cares initiative at 702 and Prime Media Outdoor. 702, let's walk the talk and make a difference together.
I'm Samela Kilboy, an actress and mom to 3 lovely kids. I worry about how sugar can make them sick. Drinking sugary drinks could lead to diabetes, heart disease, and obesity as they get older. Diabetes is one of the top causes of death in South Africa. I'm joining the fight to demand government puts our health ahead of greedy industry profits. Government must act now. Increase the health promotion levy on sugary drinks. Sign the petition on healer.org. That's HEALA.org.
As leaders in renewable energy finance, Nedbank has a track record spanning over 100 years. From pioneering large-scale solar and wind farms to financing complex energy infrastructure in emerging markets, Nedbank offers clients deep sector expertise, combined with the ability to navigate the unique challenges of Africa's just energy transition. See money differently. Nedbank. Nedbank is a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
702.
Health and wellness.
11 minutes before 12 o'clock, we're having a conversation this morning about the role and effectiveness of herbal and traditional medicine in healthcare. Some of the messages coming through, Moses says, Clement, my rural experience would wake up early in the morning, go to the kraal, milk a cow directly into our mouth. That's a good laxative for the day. It works wonders. And then Paul on the WhatsApp line also says, good day, Mr. Manyathela. There's no nation in the world that has never used plants and herbs to heal the sick or prevent. Before the advent of medicine science, we too, for centuries, used or still use what the West call traditional remedies, but it works. However, some academics or former academics in some public institutions commercially exploit our indigenous knowledge for their personal benefit. That's sad. That's a message there from Paul. And then Paul says, I'm a dietitian and I'm trained in functional nutrition in the US. We have manual that details drug herb nutrient interactions. The Western and Asian herbs are well researched and documented. The problem is that the manuals don't have a lot of the herbs or traditional medicines that are found in Africa, or we just don't know the English or scientific names for those. That's a message there from Mpo. Here's a WhatsApp that's also come through.
Good morning, Clement. Can you please ask the traditional healer if they can prescribe herbs without associating them with ancestral issues and stuff? For instance, I'm a Christian, but I believe in natural herbs than Western medication. But almost everybody I know who trades herbs are always associating it with some traditional ancestral connections, and that becomes more against my faith as well.
Lovely. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, Godfrey, yes, you can respond to that question.
Yes, thank you very much. What I need to say is that our generic belief as traditional healers is that God controls biodiversity, controls vegetation and everything associated with it. Our main belief is that God and the ancestors, during the creation of the universe, they facilitated a situation where herbs generally and plants generally grow in a specific pattern across the planet. And when you analyze that situation, you find that those herbs and plants grow as per the expected clinical conditions of those people in that region. That is why the location dynamics of herbs cannot be the same all over the world. If I may cite an example, moringa is not indigenous to Southern Africa. It was derived from India and transplanted to Southern Africa, and now it's being commercialized at a large scale. But it's not necessarily one of our proper indigenous herb in the Southern African region, as much as it's now growing in huge numbers, in huge quantities rather, in places like Mozambique. Now, the reason why that was a factor is that if you look at the regions of the world, the SADC region included, our physiology and anatomy, the growth of herbs and the planting of herbs by the powers that be, I'm talking about God Almighty and working with the ancestors, guides that entire process as to which herbs are most relevant for a specific region. So what grows in the Amazon, what grows in India and China, and what grows in Southern Africa is not the same. So that's question number one. Question number two, yes, I heard the listener talking about his Christian persuasion and background. That's fair enough. That's okay. I think even if he is a Christian and he is using herbs, he will get resolved to some extent. However, he will not access all the levels of the action of the herb without a proper dialogue with the ancestry. And I think this whole thing, I must say to you, Clement, and your listenership, this whole thing of separating Black Africans into Christians versus the ones that believe in traditional religion and so on, is very unfortunate. Unfortunately, it's a religious matter. It's just like politics. It does divide people across very strong ideologies. But it is a very unfortunate scenario, because what happens in as I spoke last time, in pre-colonial Africa, is that we are traditionally a people that believe in African traditional religion, which doesn't reject God, which has its own version of its, of its own Christian independence, which is African in nature. But I won't dwell into that today. So, but he is most welcome to use traditional herbs, as much as he will not uncover all their benefits. Yes.
Yeah, no, true. And as I said earlier, I mean, I have seen people who are Christian who still use herbal remedies, traditional remedies that work for them. I've seen someone who had cancer who is Christian who has also dabbled in just supplementing, the so-called modern medicine with traditional and herbal remedies, and it's actually just worked for them. They didn't have to go for consultations, which is why I asked, could it be that because though maybe the ones who came before us have done the necessary consultations, or it could very well be that there hasn't been, but this is something that's worked for them. Here's another WhatsApp voice note that's also come through.
Hi, Clement. I'm listening to your guest there. There's a point you made regarding being given medication or herbs which are prescribed to you, specifically to you, to avoid our allergies. But there's a question I have to say. I've been to traditional healers who dispense the same kind of medication to everyone that attends to them. And I've always had a problem with that, not understanding how so. What does he has to say regarding that? Because most traditional healers, they have a standard medication treatment, so-called, that they give to their people, and I don't understand it. And I think he's agreeing with me. Can you explain what is the meaning of that?
Okay. Godfrey, before you explain that, can you also address this question around the concerns out there about fake or unsafe herbal products on the market? How can people tell what's safe and what's not? If you can do that quickly, please, because I've got about 30 seconds left.
Yes. Safety of traditional medicines is key. Unfortunately, we are in a period of transition where we are trying to, as much as possible, despite the problems that we currently have registered with the Department of Health, we are trying to standardize the practice of traditional medicine in this country so that it can be formalized and professionalized. Now, during this transition, it is difficult to account for the kind of herbal concoctions you find at your retailers and your stores where we get our toiletries and stuff. What I would say is there is no standard in this country for the packaging and bottling of traditional medicines. Also, that standard would have to account for the ingredients and specify them in volumetric means and percentage means and so on. We are hoping that in future we should be able to interact with the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority, which is SAPRA, once we have addressed all our niggling problems with the Department of Health, so that matter can be standardized. I must also stress that, however, the handling of traditional medicines and remedies, it is very sensitive. So people that are traditional know that, for example, when you have just faced a bereavement, it doesn't matter whether you are male or female, or when you are female and are going through your menstrual periods, you cannot touch traditional medicines. So the commercialization aspect of traditional medicine is very complicated when it comes to those considerations. Same as people that get their traditional medicines via courier. You don't know who touched them in the process, and they could be violated by the time you receive them. Yes.
Yeah, Godfrey, we're out of time. I've got to leave it there, but we'll do part 2 of this conversation with you soon. Thank you so much for making time for us.
It's amazing what Help can do. Help can take you from smart money moves to smart gadgets and household must-haves. With an FNB Premier Credit or Fusion card, get up to 40% back in e-bucks on devices and appliances. Open any FNB Premier account today, celebrating 25 years of helping you live the Premier life. FNB, help changes everything. TC's earn rules apply while stocks last. FNB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized financial services and credit provider.
Introducing South Africa's most affordable way to get hearing aids. At Specsavers Audiology, you can now get a pair of hearing aids from as little as 599 Rand per month. Hearing clearly shouldn't be a luxury. Enjoy life's moments from 599 Rand per month. Test your hearing today and join the conversation with Specsavers Audiology. T's and C's apply.
All right, that's it from us today. We'll be back with you again tomorrow between 9 and 12. Have a beautiful day, my friends. The Midday Report is up next after the news. Bye-bye.
This is EWN.
Good afternoon, I'm Bali Dlamini. National Director of Public Prosecutions Clement Manyathela has started giving testimony in Parliament this morning. Manyathela is appearing before Parliament's ad hoc committee investigating allegations of criminality in the criminal justice system. She has started by taking the committee through work being done to rebuild the NPA recommendations from these commissions.
I'm hoping that the